Okay, I don't have my gavel, but I would love to call this meeting to order. Today is a special meeting, 7/23/25, and I would love for the clerk to call the roll.
Tyrell Stevens.
Present.
Angel Newman. 19 Hinkle. Corey Jones.
Present.
Renee Mendoza. Melissa Hughes.
Present.
Heidi Silverio. Steve Williamson.
Present.
Michelle Ponce.
Present.
Jenny Mercado.
Yeah.
All right, do you have a phone?
Thank you so much. We would like to go into items 1.3, superintendent update. Superintendent.
Thank you. So we have two brief updates for you tonight. They're both in front of you. The first, as I promised last week, as soon as we knew any more information regarding the status of federal funding, we would provide you with a new update. At this time, only Title 4B, which if you remember from last week, the money that goes to our partners for after-school programs and those types of functions, at this time, only that has been released. Yeah, it is helpful, it is helpful. The district is still without over $5 million in federal funding at this time. And we are continuing to meet and create strategy on how to best serve our students with that continued need. So we still have to face this reduction of over $5 million in federal funds. And we have no indication if or when any of that money will be given to school districts across the country. So we are all working at trying to understand what we can shift so that there is the least impact possible. And of course, there will be negative impact, but the least impact possible on things that face students directly. So that is all that I have to share at this point. We hope to have a more detailed report for you next week outlining the decisions and the things that we will be cutting or freezing. And then I wanted to provide you a very brief highlight for the school board. And so in front of you, you have the 3 slides. The first slide shows you the iReady ELA data. So this is our English language arts data in terms of student outcomes and academic achievement. So we have been using iReady and ELA now for 2 years. So we have some data from multiple years. But what I want to focus on is the change in student academic outcomes from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. At the beginning of the year, students who took iReady, and that's students up through grade 8, 15% of them began the year on grade level. Currently, at the end of the year, 40% ended the year on grade level. So a pretty significant growth. And one of the things that we also want to see when we see that change, we are also seeing a decrease in the number of students who are 2 or more years behind. At the beginning of the year, 53% of students were 2 or more years behind in ELA. And at the end of the year, 37% were 2 or more years. So also really important gains for student outcomes in English language arts. The next one is our iReady Math. So this is the first year that we used iReady Math for the entire year to see how our students were performing and to be able to provide them with some interventions and strategies as well. So at the beginning of the year, only 9% of our students across our schools were on grade level. By the end of the year, we increased significantly to 38%. Still not where we want to be, but we are making gains and we programs. And we're also seeing that important change in the number of students or percentage of students who are 2 years behind. So at the beginning of the year, over half of the students were 2 or more years behind in math. By the end of the year, that had changed to 32%. So again, more work to be done, but our academic outcomes as measured by iReady are showing promise. And we have a continued strategy to increase that and continue to grow in these areas. And then looking at one of our areas of focus that we talk about significantly is our career and technical education program. This year, we've had the highest number and the highest percentage of seniors who have completed all of the CTE requirements. So many students can be involved in CTE, but a program completer, they are the ones that have the 3 years of coursework, plus they have the certification or license that comes out of that. So last year, we had 50% of the students who completed the CTE requirements, and this year, that's 56% of the students in the program. One of the things that we know from evidence-based literature is that one way to improve student graduation rates and student outcomes is by increasing student engagement and their passion for what they're learning and that connection to real world opportunity. So I'm super excited about this next data point. When we looked at our graduation rates and we pulled out students who were enrolled in CTE programs, 100% of those seniors graduated from high school. And this is up from a completion rate of 38% in the 2021 school year. So we want to go back to when TAP began. Our completion rate, we began at 38% back at that time, and now we are at 56%. So that ends my student outcome data report for the evening.
Thank you, Superintendent Dillon. We are going to move over to item 2.1.
Sure.
I'm sorry. So this is for all students all grade levels?
For iReady, iReady goes to 8th grade, and ninth grade students also take iReady, but not to the extent that the students in K-8.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to move to items 2.1. I would like to entertain a motion. Can I have a motion?
I want to make a motion to table item 2.1 in light of conversations with the city council, and efforts to further our relationship with the council. I think that we can table this action.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Second, motion been made by Chairman Jones, seconded by Dr. Williamson. Any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
It has been tabled. We would like to go to 3.1. Now, we're a little bit ahead of time, which is totally fine and okay with me. 3.2 is something that I think we can get some updates on pertaining to the listening sessions. I want to take a motion to move 3.2 above 3.1. Can I entertain a motion? Motion been made by Secretary Fonts. Can I have a second? Second by Ms. Hughes. Any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion has passed. We are going to go into items 3.2. Do we have an update?
Yeah, so, Ben Youngwood from the city, some of you guys met him, he met you guys at some of the walkthrough spaces. He has purchased all the snacks and the beverages for the listening session. Melissa, I know you said you wouldn't mind picking up your snacks, at City Hall, so they'll be there ready for you on Monday for the first session. If you can't do that, just let me know, we can bring, for, you picked up the other 2 sessions, the Hope and the one at EQ, he will be there, so he said he can bring them for us, but he's not gonna be able to attend Monday, so he was just saying something to pick up.
Yes, offline, I'll get his contact info from you, and I'll coordinate with him directly.
Okay, I'll send this out. I sent it to everybody, I did send it to you, when you, but I'll send it again, I'll send it to you, no problem. Just so, yeah, everyone can coordinate and pick up with him for your snacks and your water bottle. Other than that, Suzanne is working on the website, me and her have to meet, to be able to kind of coordinate the rest of the website. Is, up and running now. As of now, 19 has been trained on implicit bias training, so we all have gone through that training now, so everyone is prepared and ready to go. That's all I have as far as updates, just if everyone can push the marketing for Monday and, Wednesday, Thursday, the 31st, the 28th and the 31st. My head hurts.
Yeah.
Okay, so Rochambeau and Hope, everyone can just push, like market, like get it out there, try to get as many people to see it as possible.
I have one additional piece. The Where Are We Now document is completed, it's in the process of being printed for you. So we will send a digital copy so you have time to review it. And then we will bring the copies to your sessions, or you can pick them up whichever you prefer, so that there's one for each sequel.
So, Sarah. Okay.
So just to make sure, and my apologies, I had to leave a little bit early from our special meeting last week. So I know that I'm gonna be picking up, sorry, I'm asking a lot of questions, but I've got the first listening session on Monday, so I want to make sure I get that one right. And I did meet with one of my co-hosts just today for lunch, and so she's really excited. We're meeting with the other co-hosts, we're really excited. So, just, I'll be getting snacks and water from there. It sounds like some of the other materials will be coming from the district. And who might I expect, we don't have to name names in this moment, but like, who is my point person at the district to coordinate, materials or meeting us?
So the best would be face.
Okay,
Yeah, so definitely face, but you can also just reach out to me, and then I can make sure that, based upon summer schedules, I can give you a specific person who's in on that particular day. That one, yes.
And then finally, two more questions about website/comms, if I may. So, the Where Are We Now document, will that get posted on that webpage as well?
Yes.
Related in that centralized location, big kudos to the PPSD comms team for doing a lot of heavy lifting.
Suzanne's been out.
As always, as expected. So, and then will there be any communications via Parent Square or other avenues? I have not, as a parent, I have not received anything yet, so I'm wondering if there's a schedule.
We have not. I know Suzanne said it would probably simply say send it out on this day, so before the end of the week.
Yeah, I would say even if it's the end of this week, just to say these listening sessions are starting, here's the link to all of, like, our page, and you can, I leave that to Suzanne's crafting, but I think it would be helpful for that to come out. Like, I think we're all doing our individual marketing, but that would be a great way to catch as many folks as possible. I think that's my only suggestion, but again, really excited to get started, a little bit nervous to be first, but I know Steve and I will do an amazing job. And we welcome anybody else to attend, and I'm hoping to attend many other sessions. And just,
Where is your first session?
it's at Rochambeau Library in the community room on Monday evening.
So, Zara, I have a question. If all 10 of us can't be at one session, right? Like, is that breaking quorum? Or is it because it's a listening session, it's okay if 4 of us happen at once?
It's bad optics, right? But it's only 30 homes we're talking about working, right?
Can't be considered.
So repeat it for me. So you're trying to get a quorum at each one?
No.
We
I'm
don't
just
want
saying,
We accidentally.
I'm saying if all of us are like, oh, we all wanna go to this one specifically, or we all end up being, all 10 of us end up being that one, is that like?
We'll try not to do that.
So we should have sign-ups and only.
You should try not to do that, because you don't want to get yourself into, because you are going to be talking about business that's within the purview of definition of the school department. I would rather you
Be
not have a quorum.
Okay, so only up to 5 board members can be at
Yeah.
each one.
That was gonna be
So
my
I think,
last.
I think we'll have a
Pick your
sign-up.
meeting.
Pick your meeting, from 1 to 5.
Yeah.
Is it possible to roll that into our sort of working spreadsheet that you've done
Playbook,
such
yeah.
an amazing job with? Maybe if there's a tab for that just, or if there's a tab that already makes sense, I haven't looked at it in
I can make a new tab, Melissa, that, or I don't know, I'll look at it and see what it is. Maybe we can just sign up in the session right next to it. Okay.
Yeah,
I know how.
Oh, I
am
know.
Steve,
I can't
Melissa.
see, we're good, we're good. No, the host at Rochambeau, they host a lot of events there, and they seemed really gracious and excited to have us there. And again, the community co-hosts for that session are the PTO leaders from MLK Elementary and Gregorian Elementary. And they've already shared with their entire email distribution and groups there. And I think they're also reaching out to admins and staff at those schools directly to say, hey, we're helping support the school board. And also sharing, if you can't make it to this one, that's totally fine. There's one at Hope coming up as well in the same neighborhood, but there's also sessions across the state. So I'm excited to kick it out. Nervous to
Now, are we feeling like, I know everyone's not gonna register, like, how are we in turning people away when we're at capacity at the stage? Like, is there, I know we haven't really talked about that too much, or if they sent it to their whole email list, I'm just thinking like,
I sent it on to,
yeah, your whole 9,000.
and I text everybody.
Yeah, let's bring it down, so we can do district about that and see.
Yeah, 'cause some places have overflow rooms, I know Rochambeau does, but it depends on if they're available. But every time, when we had the city council debate there, it went over capacity and they opened up another room. And it wasn't a problem.
Okay,
And it was like a few hundred.
okay.
That might be a problem though in terms of the logistics of communicating with the groups if they're in a different location in the building.
Right.
And Rochambeau is the first one, and it's also the one with probably one of the smaller meeting
Yeah,
rooms.
and a solid turnout
Yeah.
of folks.
Maybe we could do something like at the sign-in desk, each one should have sign-in desk. Once it hits, I don't know, whatever that match number is for that space facilitation, and we could use some handouts for the next session. That's like register for the next session, you know what I mean?
We'll have to pay for survey, ready for people to
Yeah.
go with also.
Just paper surveys here and also like the next session that's a hope or something like that. Like another signing that should probably, figure out what that number's gonna be.
Okay.
So it's gonna be tough, like if it's over capacity, because we gotta do like small group breakouts, tables, especially if people are coming in late. So I think definitely people are coming in like later than when the first round of questions get started. You might wanna have a little bit of this.
And we have the capacity numbers for each space, so we can let the city know the person who's sitting at the desk, once we hit this number, we're at capacity. You know,
We don't wanna turn them away though, we wanna try to.
we're
find
gonna encourage
accommodation.
them to.
Yes, go to the other one, yeah.
And let's communicate with the districts of the schools that we're gonna be at, so their process and protocol may be buildings under that capacity. Where was that that debate at?
It was at Rochambeau.
Got it, okay,
It was in the basement room, and they opened up another room somewhere.
okay,
But, you know, folks were just in the hall, they wanted to hear the debate, the other room, you couldn't hear the debate.
okay.
Right, so it had the other room open, but it was like, most of the people sat in the halls because there's the door.
President Stevens, I think it should be the same for the school, like we're at capacity, we should encourage that to go. Because there's no way we can facilitate in two spaces.
That's what
I was gonna say, do we wanna like figure out what that magic number is? Like, what do we have for, in terms, no, I mean like in terms of how many people we think we can facilitate?
I see what you're saying.
Like not the building
Not the
capacity,
capacity.
but like what's our capacity to facilitate?
Does anyone have a thought on
I know when we went to the, yeah, they we kind of went over that in real time, like how many seats and how much, would be.
that? I think it was 8 at each table and about 8 tables, so it was like 64-ish. No, it was 70 something, I think.
But I know each location is gonna be different, so it's probably gonna take more time to actually sit down and see which is capacity and which plan for each session.
I think she's asking, who do we feel like is the top amount of people we can facilitate to?
Oh, okay.
Not
Because we have to have time
Okay.
for the groups to report out.
Okay,
So if we
okay.
have 10
That's
groups,
true,
that by itself is going to take a long time to report out.
that's true.
So even if we put 10 people in groups. Put 10 people in each group, we had 10 groups, 100 people is gonna be unwieldy probably, you know what I mean? Like,
That is true.
so
Should we,
some of the spaces probably will hold.
should we think
Well,
about,
I might have.
should we think, like the stickies and stuff, people gonna have to probably write them down and just,
They have to do that anyways. I think that, yeah, I think we should, I don't think we need to decide right now. Maybe this is something we kind of think about later. But I do agree, I think that it's like a report out is gonna be the issue. You know what I mean? I think the introduction, to get people going will be fine. It's gonna be how long do you want the debrief to be? Kind of thing.
The 64 feel like too much.
We're doing it on Mondays.
I don't think so.
We are your test case. Steve and I did talk during and after our site visit there, saying that we anticipate it'll be well attended, you know, but who knows what that means in July? Like, I think people have good intentions, but also it's the first one, and, yeah. But I think one of the things we talked about strategically was if for this session, I'm the facilitator and he's the note taker. But the note taker doesn't have, unless I'm misunderstanding the script, they don't have a lot of formal tasks until more the tail end. And so our plan was that I would keep asking the questions and maybe moving around a little bit towards the front of the room, and then maybe Steve would cover the back of the room a little bit, just to make sure. In this case, I do feel like at most sessions, it's probably helpful if possible to have 3 or 4 board members, not 6, but 3 or 4, because then if it is a large group or a large space, then that's not Steve trying to, zone coverage the entire room, but there's more help. And certainly I know, hopefully our community hosts, I imagine many of them in many instances will also be able to help us out a little bit. I guess that's what I was asking more about, like who, is the idea that there will be a designated, at least a person, if not persons from FACE, and a person or persons from the city at each session?
There will be.
Even if we don't know specifically who they are, but we'll have some sort of manpower available to us on site in the moment.
Both the district and city have lists of people who are outside for each.
Oh, I was gonna ask, I'm just thinking, I didn't think about this till right now, but do we need, do we have, like, the communication microphones? We do have them for them?
Yep, last week we went through all of the checklists, yep, and then the spaces that don't, the district and the market for. Yeah. So I'll put all that information in a doc and put it on our Facebook to see what we see at each space. But I think most of the spaces have a speaker and microphone.
I think it will feel awful to turn folks away, but what a gift to know that there's something.
Yeah.
And so I think we're gonna do our best. I think we're trying our best to accommodate and.
These are the questions we're asking people input. If you do the survey, we just can't have your discussion. If you want to come
Come
to the next
Thursday.
one.
Right,
Thursday
right,
one.
right.
Just like a secret.
And maybe trying to have it be like, by like how many people sign up, you know what I mean, but also by like us, you know what I mean? There is gonna be a thing too where like,
Rolling on it.
yeah, I think it's good to give people like some like grace period, whether it be like 15 minutes or something like that, but after that, you probably want, and I think it's like totally against how I even operate, but I feel like for this kind of stuff, like, we may need to be like, okay, we cut off time for like 15, 20 minutes from start time, just so we can keep it moving, you know?
I think that's a great point too, because the questions build off of each other, so I'm worried if people come in the middle, it might not make sense.
Yeah, and they could
Coming in at
disorganize the
questions 3 or
process.
4, yeah.
They could like unintentionally disorganize the process and create like a bad atmosphere for other people who understand the context. 'Cause if folks come in the middle, that means they miss the skill, you know, they miss the idea of why are we asking the same questions essentially in different ways 6 different times. And why are we not talking at all to come in, and they could create harm to the space by trying to like, well, this sucks. or they could feel like totally unheard,
Yeah.
because, and then even harm to them because they weren't oriented properly.
Yeah. I think the city the city is gonna assign someone to be at the sign-in desk, so we'll just have to communicate with them, like, at this point, and just give them like what spiel they should be saying.
With that list, is it the list that we'll put together, they're gonna put
It's a
together?
sign-in sheet, so
Okay, what, is it gonna be like first, last name only, or they're gonna ask for like?
it's everything, yeah. It's in our drive, the sign-in sheet, it has like email, phone number, I think it even asks like parent, community member, educator.
Okay.
Okay. Kind of.
Okay.
So when cause we're gonna formulate an outreach list, and that when, at the end of the session, we're ready to do our, playback to them, like, okay, this is what we came up with, this is what we heard. We have everybody's address, and so we can just directly reach out, like, okay, this is what is happening, maybe we can get there. And we might have to have a couple of holidays.
Can I ask one more question? I'm sorry, I wasn't here last week, and you y'all was on it. I wasn't.
Okay, that makes sense.
I know, I'm like,
So we did our reports out with the walkthroughs.
I was like, oh, I feel like, oh, where I am. Oh, it's not y'all's fault. It's my fault. I guess the question was, when we had talked with AJ and everybody, he had told us it was okay for us to record the sessions. Like audio recorded sessions is like a backup, like not as a replacement for taking notes, but as like a backup for us. So I don't know if you guys talked about that or if we feel comfortable if that's something we want to do. What the heck is that? Is that
It's
a
a live recorder. It takes
Says
the
what the heck is
transcript.
that?
It takes the transcript and then I can use AI to like generate notes from it. So we have the live information just as it is, but then we also can use that.
So that's what we're gonna use? Oh,
Um,
that's an option.
it's an option. So I have one computer, but we can try to figure something out. There might be a way that everyone can log into my account or something.
But that's not a substitute for
taking notes.
taking those, that's in addition.
Yeah, it wasn't, I guess, maybe I'm asking a question, is that something that we want to do? Because I think if one of us do it, we should probably all do it.
I say so,
Yeah.
just to have that live transcript and be able to see if we, really did it, exactly how we're supposed to do it, right? If the transcript don't lie, right? It might distort some words and do something else, but it's not even telling the whole story, that's not true, right?
Yeah.
But but you can look at a transcript and it looks confusing because people talk different than they write and they might miss something, so you still have to take those notes, but it definitely will help if you miss anything.
I also don't know in a big room. if
Right,
I'm
if
gonna
they're catch
everybody.
everything, it's definitely
So we
not.
do still have, but I think it is a good kind of tool.
Is that something that needs to be done in your experience, if you've used this in spaces before? Would you recommend that needs to be a
So-
laptop versus a phone? It's like, if you have multiple phones, like, is that worse? Because then you have multiple devices looking at different things.
So I've never used it multiple times, and I have found that on the laptop it's better than on the phone. I think something about like the way the laptop sits and like, I don't know, like your phone has a case on it. And so maybe like a phone without a case and would be fine, but I found that the laptop is better. And I think you could probably have multiple. That wouldn't be a bad idea if you have one in the front, one in the back of the room.
Or since the note taker is taking notes, the person that's facilitating can go towards each table that's sharing out and be closer to the people that are talking. And then when the next table goes, they go to that table so that it can pick up fully.
Yeah.
It's really just gonna be
Exactly.
Yeah.
right now.
It's not the whole thing.
Will it pick up sound on a microphone well? Because if we're using
It
a
will.
sound system and we're
Yeah.
passing the mic, then
Right.
That's
If we
a good
use the
point.
mic, it should be just fine.
That's a good point.
What's the name of that?
It's called granola. There's a lot of other ones though, but yeah, granola is what I use.
Is it like, yeah, is it?
So I'm on the 14-day free trial still.
What?
And I think after there's a free version where you can do like 25 meetings a month or something like that.
Why did, when you say granola, it just made me hungry?
There's something
I know,
here,
right?
Tyra.
It's granola.
No, I'm fine. Okay, we're gonna move on, okay, is everybody good right now? Lastly, media. There's been some outreach for some, radio stations. Have you been able to connect with them?
I haven't talked with Dale, so I'm gonna reach out to him.
Okay,
But, I'm kind of,
Perfect.
a little busy. So,
perfect.
I'm gonna text Ruckus again, because we were supposed to, he's supposed to get back to me this weekend.
The Jim Vincent show responded, is that correct?
Next week at 6, probably.
We want the two others so we can promote the listening session, so that's heading into next week, okay? Okay, we are going to move on to items 3.1, which will be the working session and training governance with the Council of Great City Schools. Okay, AJ. I'm gonna move in just a second.
Can you hear us, Mr. AJ?
I can now.
Oh, yay. Okay, awesome, hang on.
How you doing, AJ?
I have a really, really blessed day.
Listen,
How about it?
I have an amazing school board here ready for some training, so,
Excellent, excellent.
but you have the floor.
I can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't see 10 people. Is everybody there?
There's 6 of us here, Mr. AJ. Oh,
Were
7.
we,
7. I'm here.
how many were we expecting?
10. I think. Well, I don't know.
Matt should be here about 8 minutes, I think it's 6:10.
Yeah, and Debbie said they were.
Maria and Danny both said they couldn't.
So we're expecting 8. One more, Mr. AJ.
Okay, no problem. You can wait. And then is there anybody else with us? I don't know if there's staff or who else?
We have, the commissioner, the superintendent, Dr. Dillon here, we have Ms. Martha here, I don't know everyone's title.
Zach, Deputy
If you guys
Superintendent.
wanna say your name.
Hey, John, I'll say it. So we have, the acting superintendent, Dr. Dillon, that's here. We also have Martha, who is the superintendent board services manager. We also have Deputy Superintendent Zach Scott. Your good friend, Mr. Eggleston is in the back, Superintendent Eggleston, and our legal counselors here, Ms. Sarah Rappaport.
All right.
And we have some community members as well, Mr.
Oh.
AJ.
Oh, excellent, excellent. Some of the partners, who are hosting someone listening?
No, some, educators and then some, new people.
Oh, all right, excellent. Good. Well, I will just rely on you all to let me know when it departs out.
I think we can start, Mr. AJ.
Okay, do you all have a screen or something you can project on? Just now occurred to me you all are in a small room. Okay, can you project, your most recent, board meeting agenda?
I'm gonna pull up June, is that okay? 'Cause that was our last full board meeting.
And anyone works.
Okay.
They're all equally appropriate for the activity. Meanwhile, get that set up. Folks, you will need something to write on and something to write with. So if you don't have a notepad and pen or something handy, you might want to get that sorted out, as you will want to take some notes and you will need to do some writing during these activities.
Does everyone need,
I can grab some pens. How many people need a pen? I got it.
can get some pads.
Yeah, I guess I'll find it. Actually, maybe you could help me with.
I'm sorry. Just,
I'll be back.
Oh, the 20, this Monday coming up? Monday, that's a community meeting for them.
Wait a minute, did Amelia leave? Am I that boring?
They were,
You're scared.
they were here for a specific agenda item, Mr. AJ. So I think now that that has passed.
Table it, yeah.
I thought I was the main event. What happened?
You're our main event.
We love you still. Mr. AJ, I know you've given me and the leadership our flowers, but would you mind just sharing with the board how you feel about how we're moving? And we try to kind of give.
Yeah. Actually, it's funny. Cindy and I were just talking about it today. We had a session, with Nigel. As you all probably remember, Nigel wasn't able to make it to the training that we did about community listening and active listening and making sure that you're observing what folks are saying rather than interpreting. So Nigel, I think, was the only board member who wasn't able to make it that. So we had a makeup session, so that he could be on the same page as y'all. And after it, Cindy and I were talking, it's like, why can't every school board take this work, the work of listening to and engaging with their communities, as seriously as this board is? Like, you don't even understand, even though school board members are public officials in every state in the union, mostly elected, sometimes appointed, but either way, public officials. You'd think the public officials would have a natural affinity for listening to the public that they represent. And even when people say that they do, it's like, oh yeah, we absolutely should listen. But then when it comes time to actually listen, oh wait a minute, so it's not convenient for me to listen, so I don't have to participate. Like, people just get real shady, real hurry. And we don't understand it. And so imagine our joy, find out that not only are you all kind of going out of your way to get this organized, you have what, from Cindy and I's recollection, is easily the most attractive flyer for the listening campaign. Like, we literally emailed that out to other countries, like, look, I don't know what kind of coaching you all are providing, but this is the product of the district that we're coaching. So if your districts ain't producing business like this, like, we just flex it for no reason. Like, we made it ourselves, right? And so yeah, we literally sent that out across the country to all of our coaches and said, hey, look, it's great to see an example of work that is designed to make the community feel included and pulled into the work, excited about the work, that is attractive, inspiring. It's amazing to hear a board actually doing practice. One of the things you actually talk about, it's like, oh yeah, they have you practicing. I didn't fully understand it, but I was practicing right along with them. It's like, but now that I've had the training, now I totally get what they were talking about, and I'm excited to go do it. For most boards, it's like, I don't know what it is, but it's often like pulling teeth to get folks to really lean into this work, to lean into the core foundation of being a public official, which is listening to the public. And so, Cindy and I just wanted to express gratitude to you all for the way that you're going about engaging the work. We will continue to push. We will continue, to prod you on to be the most powerful and transformative versions of yourselves. But the fact that you all are leading that, are clearly ahead of your peers across the country. Don't be surprised when at next year's annual conference, we ask representatives of Providence to present to school boards across the nation on effective practices in community listening, because you all really have been just that much ahead of many of your peers in this area. And I think hearing your story could inspire other board members across the country to step their game up a little bit. So just thank you for what you're doing. Obviously, the hard work is still ahead of you, but there's a lot of hard work to do. And just as much as I'm excited about all the progress you've made so far, I'll be the first one to chew on you if you start falling off. So please don't fall off. But just big ups to you all for the work that you're doing so far.
Thank you. I just wanted them to hear it from you, because we've been updating them, telling them that you guys have been really impressed with how well us as a board has been doing, but it always sounds better coming from you. So.
Yeah, no, it's well, and that's part because we're team keep it 100. Like, if y'all fall off, we'll be the first ones to be like, why y'all shady as hell there? And I'll be the first one to ask a board member who who didn't do their homework. What were you doing instead of loving on children last week?
Right.
And so like it slices both ways. When people are on point, like you want to call that out, be like, hey, hallelujah, thank you for being an example to the entire nation, to all of the other districts in the council. When people fall off, we be like, hey, we ain't gonna call you by name, but we'll probably write a case study about what not to do.
Anonymous.
Let me just say, we have a lot of case studies that we've written. And, we change the name.
A good-sized Northeast city.
I'm about to run a school board.
Either way, you're gonna be a blessing to children across the nation. How about that? One way or the other.
Way to turn a beautiful thing good.
As an exemplar or as an unnamed case study, either way, you will be a blessing to children nationwide. So thank you for your service.
Okay,
my
Mr.
goodness.
AJ, I think everyone has a pen and paper and we're ready to get to it when you're ready.
Why does time use matter? Today, the theme for the entire session is going to be use of time. Why does the board's use of time matter? Anybody jump in. It's going to be like this all night. Stop it.
Because time is currency, and we have a limited amount of time.
Look, there's a finite amount of currency to spend, and how you spend it matters. Why does how the board spend its time matter?
Because
Who else?
we decide what we're buying when we spend that time.
Oh, most definitely. Like you are definitely purchasing the culture of the district every time you spend your currency. Every penny of currency you all spend is purchasing culture. You are a culture-setting entity. People think that the most powerful effect that school boards has is policy. That is not my experience. That is not my experience at all. The most powerful effect is when what you say and what you do match up. But when what you do is disconnected from what your behavior is disconnected from what you say, your policy. Guess which one the staff is more likely to follow? What you do or what you say? They just like your trifling kids at home who you tell them to act right, but then you do wrong and they just go ahead and echo you and they do wrong too. They don't do what you say do. Like, I wish that worked. That never worked in my home. Like, whatever I did, that's what they would do. And so if they wasn't acting right, I had to look in the mirror. The board is a culture-setting entity. Now, when your behavior as a board, how you spend your time, and when you're speaking as a board, what you write in policy, when those two match up, you are powerful, absolutely powerful to be transforming the lives of children. But if staff have to decide which one of those is real, they will follow what you do, not what you say. That makes how you spend your time a powerful, powerful driver for organizational culture, a powerful driver for the staff and your community to understand what you think is the most important. And so whatever you spend the majority of your time on, then you don't have to tell people what your priorities are. People know what your priorities are because they can see them. Anybody else? Why is how the board spends its time so important? Anybody else?
I think it's because the work we do is more important than what happens in this room. It affects children. So when we waste time, we're not just wasting time, we're hurting children.
Everything you do, this is a hard reality. And board members don't like it when I say it, but there's a hard reality, is that every single behavior of every board member and of the board collectively has an effect on your students, either positively or negatively. There are no neutral actions that will take place in this room. There are no neutral actions. Everything that you do as a board member individually and as a board collectively will either move the ball in the direction of educational justice or away from educational justice. But there will be no neutral action. Oh, well, if we do this, it won't hurt anything. Okay, yes. It will either help or it will harm. It will never be neutral. And so all there is to do is to decide what is the effect that we want to have. And then every now and then to stop and kind of replay the video like an effective coach would to try to identify what is the effect that we've been having. Have we been a blessing to children? Or have we been a scourge? Have we actually created a harm for children? Anytime you are not moving the ball forward, you are moving the ball backwards. If you did not want this to be true, you picked the wrong school system. Like, if all of your children had just all infinite wealth and resources and privilege and all of those things, that might be less true. It might be the case that your ineffectiveness was just a neutral impact rather than a harmful impact. But that's not the school system that you serve, and that's not the school system that is predominantly represented in the council. Like, we serve children who are furthest from educational justice all across the country, and you are no different in that regard. And one thing that unifies our children who are furthest from educational justice is that every act of ineffectiveness on the part of adults in their system absolutely creates harm for them. This is the truth of your situation, that you are constantly in battle. And so the thing that you got to figure out is, okay, is this thing that is not going to help move us forward so worth spending time on that I will accept the harm it might create to student outcomes because it's necessary that we do it anyway? That's really the question you have to wrestle with. Every moment that you are not really dialed into, are we moving the needle on student learning? You've got to make a decision. Is this use of time so valuable that the harm it might be creating with student outcomes is worth it because of the intrinsic nature of this item? And so the answer is going to be yes for some things. So for example, you have to adopt a budget at some point. This is just the nature of how these things work. You have to hire a superintendent at some point. This is just the nature of how these things work. There are some things that you'll just have to do, and you will take time away from a focus on student outcomes to do those things. But our coaching will be, even then, how can you do those things with a lens that centers the outcomes of your students while you do those things? So that is the nature of your use of time. It's this currency, you are spending it, and either you are spending in a way that is purchasing a culture that creates more outcomes for students, or you're spending in a way that purchases a culture that creates less. That is the nature of your work. Other reflections on the board's use of time, on board members' use of time, before we dive into the work. Other questions or reflections on this point? The board's use of time or board members' use of time. Other questions or reflections before we transition? Then what there is to do is to analyze the board's use of time. We're going to do that today in two different ways. We're going to analyze the board's use of time in its board meetings, and we're going to analyze the board's use of time as it relates to its committees. This is just an analysis. There will be no decisions made today. Today is not the day for deciding. Today is the day for understanding, for really causing greater clarity about the effect of the board's use of time. That's all we're doing. Later on, down the road, you will be called upon. Our job as coaches and what you've adopted in your timeline obligates you to consider, do we want to make changes? But today is not the day for making changes. Today is simply the day for gaining a deeper understanding of how are we using our time. On the screen, you see your most recent agenda.
Yeah.
All right, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to do a first of these together, and then each of you individually will do the rest on your own paper. So what is the very first item on the screen?
Call to order.
Call to order. So here's the question. Is that item focused on student outcomes, yes or no? And why?
No,
Why do you say no?
because it's a procedural part of the agenda that just, I believe, has to happen in order to start the meeting.
Procedural part of the agenda that I believe has to happen in order to start the meeting. So you're saying, no, it's not focused on student outcomes.
I could play devil's advocate and say
All right, go for it.
that it is focused on student outcomes, because it demarcates the space before the meeting when we're sitting around and we're chit-chatting and we're talking about our day, where we're not focused on student outcomes, to the part of the meeting. It signals a change to the time when we are supposed to start focusing on student outcomes.
But that's
So
under.
in refocusing us, I'm playing devil's advocate here. In refocusing us, it actually does contribute to student outcomes. potentially, if we view it that way.
Other thoughts? Anybody want to jump in? Hello? Anybody?
Well, I'm the lawyer. It's legally required to start the meeting with a quorum. You have to do it.
So interestingly enough, that is not the question. So the question is not, is it legally required? The first, don't worry, we'll come to that. I will let you know that your attorney sensibilities will be on.
That's all right. I shouldn't have said anything. Sorry.
Your sensibilities legally will be on it before we're done. Don't worry about that. But that is not the first question. And it's important that never be the first question. I don't want you as a board to ever develop the muscle of the first question we ask is, do the attorneys like what we're doing? I don't ever want that to be your first question. I want your first question to be, is this focused on student outcomes? But in order to answer that question, what it means is we need a clear rubric for knowing whether or not something is focused on student outcomes. So what properties need to be true of an item to be able to say, yes, it is focused on student outcomes?
I think if I remember correctly, I could be wrong, but student outcomes, I have to show you something that students, a skill or something they've learned that they've taken out of.
Yeah.
To measure what the students know or could do.
Yeah, to measure what students know or are able to do. And so if, as a result of the item, the board has more information about what students know or are able to do, then we say the item is focused on student outcomes. If that is not the case, then we would say, no, the item is not focused on student outcomes. So with that definition clearly in hand, we'll ask again, for this first item, 1.1, call to order. Is this item focused on student outcomes, yes or no, and why? I heard somebody say no. Why do you say no? Because?
It's Melissa. I said no because it's about herding adults and it doesn't give me any information whatsoever about student outcomes.
If I know perfectly whether or not we have a quorum, what does that tell me little AJ knows or is able to do?
Nothing.
Nothing whatsoever. And so that is the insight you need to understand that item 1.1 is not focused on student outcomes. Now, does that mean, have we rendered a judgment on whether it's good or bad?
No.
No, we have not. Have we rendered a judgment on should we keep it or delete it?
No.
No, we have not. All of that will come later. The first question, and folks, this is muscle building. Like, let this be true of your entire service and everything you do. I never want your first question to be, what will the attorneys think? I never want your first question to be, what will the newspaper think? You know, I will never want your first question. Frankly, I don't even want your first question to be, what will the superintendent think? Guess what I want your first question to be? Is this focused on student outcomes? Let this become your rubric for engagement with your use of time and the board's use of time. Whenever it's time to spend time, whenever currency is going to be put on the table, let this always be your first question, no matter what the context. No matter what the context. Is this actually focused on student outcomes? And if the answer is yes, then let it be yes. If the answer is no, so be it. That doesn't mean it's a bad thing, but it does mean we need to analyze it differently if the answer is no than if the answer is yes. All right, item 1.2, is this item focused on student outcomes, yes or no, and why?
No.
Why, I heard an authoritative no, why do you say that?
I don't like the Pledge of Allegiance, but it's no because students don't know or learn anything more if we do the Pledge of Allegiance. It doesn't change anything.
Got it.
Well, it doesn't, actually, but we're shifting there. We're saying it doesn't help students to know. If it's different if we're including things that help students to learn or know more, or if we're only including items that tell us what students know and do. So
actually,
I don't want to shift on that. Let's stick with one definition.
Actually, let's refine, because this is worth refining. It's not actually enough for us to say the item is student outcomes focused. It's not actually enough to say that the item will provide information about what students know or are able to do. That is insufficiently precise. So let's be more precise. So thank you for calling this out. Because what we're definitely not talking about is this an item that will help children learn? So for example, if we have an hour-long conversation about the science curriculum that we're thinking about purchasing next year? Have we had an hour-long conversation about student outcomes?
No,
Why do you say no?
It's not measuring what students are able to know and do as a result of the education being provided.
If we're talking, if we're talking about purchasing a curriculum for next year, have we even deployed the curriculum yet? No, we, by definition, there is no way that we know what children are able to do in the future, a year from now, based on, and so that is a conversation about adult inputs, not a conversation about student outcomes. And so a conversation about student outcomes is about what students know or are able to do. And so even if we had a conversation about what is something that we think we could purchase that could help improve student outcomes, that's not a conversation about student outcomes. It's a conversation about the adult inputs that we are going to purchase in the belief that it will help us improve student outcomes. And none of us to say is one of those conversations is good or bad. All we're doing right now is distinguishing is about student outcomes. But for this conversation to be even more clear, we need to add one more layer on it. Because if you all don't have a goal about juggling, so is juggling something that students can know or be able to do? Yeah, so we could ask, can you measure whether or not children can juggle?
Yeah.
Yeah, all right, so you might decide, one of our goals is that we want the percentage of fifth graders who can juggle 4 balls simultaneously to improve from 10% of them who can juggle four balls simultaneously, and we want to improve that to 90%. So we really believe that kids in Providence, to be great, they've got to be able to juggle at least 4 balls simultaneously. So that's the goal that you adopt. So then you have a conversation about scuba diving. In this conversation, students, have shown that they were able to get their scuba diving certificate. In that context, are we having a conversation about your goals for student outcomes? If we're having a scuba diving conversation? No, because?
It wasn't one of our goals.
Because it wasn't one of your goals. And so it's possible to have a conversation about student outcomes that doesn't actually meet our standard for being student outcomes focused. Because what we're really talking about is student outcome goals focused. Is this item focused on our goals for student outcomes? If the answer is yes, then we put a Y next to 1.1 and 1.2. If the answer is no, then we wouldn't. So even if we had a conversation about students showing proficiency in scuba diving, unless we have a goal about it, then we say, no, this item is not student outcomes goal focused. But if you do have a goal about juggling, and the item is providing you more evidence about children growing in the area of juggling, then we would say, yes, this is student outcomes goals focused.
AJ,
Question?
can I ask
Yeah.
a question about the science example? Because I think you said so. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah. Yeah, perfectly.
So let's presume that the board had a goal that had something to do with STEM outcomes, whether that was STEM on RICAS or any number of other STEM performance goals.
Give me a specific thing that students will know and be able to do.
I'm just making this up. I don't know, but like 65% of 8th graders in Providence would score proficient on science RICAS data.
All right, there you go. So that sounds like a measure of what children know we're able to do.
Let's just say that's.
And now you're saying the board could adopt a goal about that.
So the board has a goal about that. They then have an agenda item about purchasing curriculum. In the context of that, have a lengthy discussion about current student performance toward their goal. I assume that at least that element of maybe not the actual purchasing decision would maybe not count towards student outcome goals, but that conversation around rooting an investment that needs to happen around curriculum because it's rooted in current performance data toward the board goal, I assume that would count towards student outcome focus, but I just wanted to hear your reaction to that.
This is a great question. So what do you all think? Does that count as student focus, yes or no, and why?
Yes, I think that's going to be the key, is to figure out how to make these things that we have to do and that are important become more relevant and tied to the performance of students and our goals, right?
All right, so you're saying yes, because then we're actually tying the stuff that we have to do to, is it accomplishing our goals? All right, anybody else? would that item, be considered student outcomes goals focused, yes or no, and why?
Not the purchasing part, but I think the performance data part would be, yeah. It would, like they, I don't know, never mind.
Yeah, we have to think this through, yeah, this is important.
I mean, I agree with Mish for what it's worth. I don't really answer.
AJ, I think I would say, no, because it doesn't have nothing to do with what students know, what students can do.
The performance data?
No, the contract, I'm sorry, the contract.
So you're saying the contract portion wouldn't, and the question they're asking is would the data portion?
Yes, the data would, the contract wouldn't.
All right, anybody else, would that item, be considered student outcomes goal focused, yes or no, and why?
I think it'd be student outcomes goals adjacent.
No.
I don't know if it would be, I want to be precise. I think it'd be adjacent, but I think it'd be one of those hybrid necessary, like, modified items that like make, like, cause like the call isn't to have 100% of our agendas be student goals outcomes focused, because we know there's 50% of some stuff we just have to do that's input related but important to reach the goal. So I think it would be a hybrid, and it'd be adjacent, and that'd be okay.
Any other reflections on this?
I think
This-
that I'm
great
thinking
question.
back, I'm thinking back to our original training with you and how I myself got a little bit muddled in the input, output, outcome conversation. And I think what I'm wondering is while that data would be helpful for us to know, I'm still not sure it quite meets the criteria we're talking about, because those might be interim outputs or even getting information about interim goals, or if we're starting the goal. I don't know where we are, like, so I don't know where this is in the timeline of having set the goal, so it's a little difficult to answer. But I think that's the question we'd have to ask would be, is the information or the performance data that we're getting, is this like an interim output? Is this like, it feels complicated. So I guess my quick answer is no, it's not student outcomes goal focused, unless it's telling me about those specific interim goals. But since we aren't there yet, I feel like it's too tricky.
I agree with Melissa. I feel like we were just talking about this like 2 seconds ago, and one of the notes that I wrote down was having conversations about things that can help student outcomes does not count because I didn't learn about what students can do. It's an adult input, not measuring an output. So even though we're having that conversation about the data, we're still trying to figure something out that's gonna affect the future, and we don't know how that curriculum would affect the future. So that's why I would say it would not be a student outcome.
And so I would also consider that data, any of the data that's being talked about, I would almost look at that as baseline. Like where we're starting, not necessarily where we're ending.
Because we haven't purchased the
Yeah.
system yet.
Well,
I
my
think
assumption was we had data. No, my assumption was that we had data on like some students using the system or students somewhere else using the system, right? And we were looking at, some type of pilot data or, and are able to make a judgment on if we expand or continue. Yeah.
Here's the way you all want to think about this. This is a really, really important question, because this will drive a lot of your thinking about time use on a go-forward basis. If I look through a telescope the correct way, what impact does it have on what I see?
It magnifies it.
If I turn the telescope around and look at it from the other direction, what impact does it have on what I see?
It minimizes it. Yeah.
That is exactly what happens. And that is the answer to your question. If you start with a student outcomes goal focus, then it will bring information about what students know are able to do forward and magnify it. If you start with an adult inputs focus, it will take information about what students know and able to do, and it will minimize it.
That's right.
You go home, grab your kid's telescope and try it out. The reality is telescopes don't work the exact same way both directions. There's one direction if you want to see things bigger, and another direction if you want to see things smaller. And so if you want a student outcomes goal focus, that has to be the focus of the item. The whole purpose of the item is student outcomes, is our students making progress relative to our goals. Inside of that conversation, you could absolutely, and we would encourage you to have a conversation about what are the strategies that we're going to deploy over the next 6, 12, or 18 months to accomplish that. And that conversation will magnify a focus on your goals about student outcomes. But if you turn the telescope around, you start with what are the adult inputs we're going to deploy, and say, and then let's sprinkle into it a conversation about student outcomes. It will demagnify the student outcomes, and you will still be predominantly looking at adult inputs. To give a slightly more practical example of why this doesn't work, is because when you are looking at a particular adult input, so we want to buy the curriculum that we think will help improve the science source. The problem is the data set of students that you're looking at for curriculum selection is almost certainly different than the data set of students you're looking at for your goal. If your goal, I think in your example, the goal was 8th grade science, you're probably not buying just 8th grade science books. You're probably buying an aligned curriculum of science materials that span from, I don't know, kindergarten through 11th grade. And so the moment you start talking about that curriculum first, then your data that you're looking at is probably going to mirror the curriculum, not actually mirror your goals. Like I said, what will happen is the goal about student outcomes you have will actually get smaller in your view as you're looking at a broader data set overall. And so anytime you're wondering about that, if for it to really count as being focused on your goals about student outcomes, the purpose of the item has to be to provide you information about students' progress with your goals and student outcomes. And inside of that, you can have a conversation about inputs and it still works. But the reverse does not work. If you're having a conversation about the adult inputs, what's the curriculum you want to buy, and then you try to sprinkle in data about student outcomes, it will actually demagnify your goals for student outcomes. It will appear smaller, not appear larger. And so and so to the point you all made, it is definitely student outcomes adjacent. And it definitely is necessary. You're going to have to do it. There are items that you're going to have to adopt. That is part of the job. You are fiduciaries. This is why we only suggest half of your time you focus on student outcomes. Would I love to say 100%? That'd be great, but that's absurd. There is no healthy scenario I can think of where a board spends 100% of its time looking at your goals about student outcomes. That's why we say spend half of your time there because that's what you say matters most. And then the other half of your time on all the other stuff that you have to do. Questions about that response, the telescope analogy. Questions about that response?
Only thing I guess is that Drew, you was correct. That's it.
Yeah, so Drew's example is right, but if you flip it around, it's when you're in trouble.
No,
Correct.
Drew's example is wrong, it's a no. Because it starts with an adult input.
No, you started with the,
No, you started with purchasing a contract and then talking about performance data. It has to be the other way around.
Yeah, so we start with performance data relative to the goals, and then you can sprinkle in a conversation about inputs. That works. But if you start with a conversation about here are the inputs, and then later on you sprinkle in information about student performance, that does not work.
AJ, can you send that to us in an email?
I have it.
We gotta bring it down, thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
I think that what's kind of crystallizing, I'm sorry,
You can see, okay.
do you still there?
Hello?
Yeah.
He can hear you.
Oh,
Okay.
sorry, I'm hiding in the back because I don't want to get anyone like cold. I guess what was I trying to say? Okay, hold on, I lost it. Come back to me. Yeah,
Other questions or reflections on the telescope? No.
She's gonna let you know when she thinks of it, Aiden.
Yeah.
She forgot.
So in like its simplest terms, your advice is start with the student performance data, the student outcomes first, and allow those and that analysis and discussion to drive decisions of the board.
Yes, that is exactly the point. Allow student outcomes to drive decision making. Don't allow adult inputs to drive decision making. That is absolutely the point. The problem is most school systems do it backwards. They're looking through the telescope the wrong way and not understand, and then being confused about why the students are so small, in focus. Like, because you're actually literally focusing on the adult inputs rather than focusing on the student outcomes. And so we say, turn the telescope around, focus on the student outcomes, and let that drive your attention toward which adult inputs make sense for this. Not start with the adult inputs and then, which student outcomes will be affected by this.
I remember, I think what I was gonna say, is, I think what helps me sort of think about how to flip the magnifying glass, and check me if I'm wrong, AJ, but like my understanding is that we are not the educational experts. I know I'm not, but like we as a body are not the educational experts.
Yeah.
So it kind of is like, why would we be spending all this time talking about the curriculum? Like that's actually the superintendent and her team to be discussing, the educational directors to be talking about that piece primarily. Our job is really around like, is that curriculum working as it pertains to the goals that we set out? So just in terms of the conversation, it's like, we should be spending most of our time on, is this curriculum working? And show us how versus us trying to get input on something that's not really our business.
That's good.
Yeah, some people have used a grammar analogy. I'm not a grammar nerd, so that doesn't resonate for me, but it might for some of y'all. And there is a subject of the sentence. And if you, and then there's, an object, of the sentence. But the object of the sentence, can be quite different from the subject. And if we swap them in positions, one of them becomes the subject and the other becomes the object. And so the question is, what do you want to be the subject of the sentence? Do you want children and their well-being and their educational justice to be the subject of the sentence? Or do you want the strategies you're trying to use to accomplish that justice to be the subject of the sentence? What we're suggesting is, from a governance perspective, you want your children's educational outcomes to be the subject of the sentence and the strategies to be the object, the direct object of the subject. But you want the subject to be children first. The moment you make adult inputs the subject and children are just kind of the after effect, the object of the sentence, you have in effect deprioritized student outcomes. It's not what you intended to do. When you do that, that's not because you're thinking, let's put kids on the back burner. That's just the effect grammatically of what you do when you take children from being the subject of the sentence and make them the object of the sentence. Like I said, I'm not a grammar nerd, so that doesn't super resonate for me, but for some people that does.
Telescope was great.
I like the telescope. I'm a science nerd all day. I'm a science nerd all day. And so what there is to do is we're looking at the agenda. What I want you to do, you please do this individually, is I'm looking at this agenda. It goes from item 1.1 all the way down to item 13.1. What I want you to do is, on your own paper, I want you to go, are we looking at the same agenda?
Yes, sir.
What I want you to do is, each of you, I want you to individually go down the agenda, and for each item, put either a yes, this is focused on goals about student outcomes, or no, this is not focused on goals about student outcomes. We'll check in with you in a few moments. Until then, happy writing. Superintendent, I'd recommend you do the exact same activity. Staff, I'd recommend you do the exact same activity, because y'all wind up having an influence. I think there was a state guy who's trying to escape. I tell him to do the exact same activity.
I'm right here, I'm not escaping. I just can't see from back there.
But everybody go ahead and pull out your pen and paper and start with 1.1 and go all the way down to 13.1. And then for every single item, write either a yes or a no. Either yes, this is focused on our goals for student outcomes, or no, this is not focused on our goals for student outcomes. We'll check back in with you in a minute. Have fun.
Okay.
Mish, can you focus a little bit? Sorry, I haven't heard you.
There's nothing.
Hey, don't say the answers out loud. That's the best, baby.
It actually is. This is a solo activity.
Yes.
I feel like a lot of these are maybe because
Tell us what he said.
All right. Let's check back in with folks right quick.
Wait, I'm like halfway through.
All right, take about 2 more minutes. Hurry up. Staff, make sure that y'all are doing this because it will be necessary for you to be proficient in this as well.
All right, Paul, you don't gotta show us all up. Sounds good.
AJ, I have a clarifying question. I have a clarifying question. Are we counting the executive session items if those are not the, I mean, those are obviously used for our time, but when we are doing this agenda evaluation, are we counting those in the same way?
That is a very, very important question. The answer is no. You can skip closed session items.
Thank you.
Your closed session items, typically in most states, by state law, you are not going to be able to have conversations that focus on student outcome goals in closed session. There's always a very limited set of things that are legally allowable in closed session. I'm assuming that's the case with Rhode Island.
Correct. Yes.
And so those are typically items that are legally required or legally allowed to be enclosed. I don't know, I'm trying to think of any. No, actually, I guess technically they could. There aren't many states that would actually allow you to have a conversation about student performance data in closed session. It's just not a privileged item in most places. There are a couple places you can get away with it, but in most places you can't. And so, yeah, you can completely ignore your executive session items for that reason, because they are carved out by law. Makes your attorneys happy. And so I guess technically the correct response is 1.1 through 10.1, and then 12.1 and 13.1. All right. So what are you noticing? Make it an I statement. Who will be the first to share? What are you noticing? Make it an I statement. I'm noticing that.
I noticed that I have no definite yeses on here.
I'm noticing I have no definite yeses. Yeah, who else? I'm noticing that as you begin to reflect on your use of time in board meetings over the past however long you've been on the board, I'm noticing that.
Oh, there's no student outcome focus.
Make that an I statement, a statement about my performance. I'm noticing that
I'm not pushing enough for student outcome focused agenda items.
Yeah, I noticed that I haven't pushed enough for student outcome focused agenda items. Got it. Who else? I'm noticing that.
I'm noticing that when I do report outs, like the policy, I was flipping the telescope.
Yeah, I noticed that when I've been doing policy report outs, I've been flipping the telescope. It's a powerful thing to notice. Yeah. Who else? Anybody else before we transition? I'm noticing that. Staff, feel free to play the game too.
I'm noticing that in my role as deputy superintendent of academics, I play no role in.
Yeah, I'm noticing that I'm supposed to be about that academic life, and I played zero role in this particular agenda. Yeah, that is something powerful to notice. Like, wait a minute, am I really about academic life if I'm not actually about that academic life? It's kind of like in that movie Moneyball. They ask the question: if he's such a good hitter, how come he doesn't hit good? Anybody else? I'm noticing that,
I'm noticing that several items are vague and could embrace student outcome issues, but aren't specific enough to be sure.
I noticed there are some items that could be about student outcomes, but I haven't pushed on them to be specific enough to be true. Yeah. Anybody else? I'm noticing that,
I would say, so, I'm noticing that, so I helped with the facilities and capital planning presentation, so important as a presenter that I should orient those presentations more, even if the topic is facilities and capital planning, make it start with student outcomes versus having that as the, you know, the footnote versus the focus.
yeah, and this is an important point. So start to think about in three categories. There's stuff that is actually student outcomes focused first. And what I hear you saying is that's not really the stuff that I do on a day-to-day basis. And so then the second category is where I've kind of flipped, where the microscope is kind of, the telescope is kind of flipped around, where I'm going to present on something that's not student outcomes focused, but I'm going to do it in as student outcomes focused way as I possibly can on a go-forward basis. And then consider your third bucket of items. There is no telescope. There's just no student outcomes anywhere. We just are bereft of all vision. There is no vision, there is no telescope. This is just an item that we're doing, and I don't exactly know why we're doing it. Do we have to do it? Do we not have to do it? If we absolutely have to, if we examine, is that true, or are we just assuming we have to? But you know, consider there are items where we're looking through the telescope and we're magnifying student outcomes. We're looking through the telescope and we're not focused on those, but we're at least making sure they're in the sight picture. And then the third group of items, there's no telescope. I don't even understand what this item is doing here because it in no way has anything to do with student outcomes, and yet it is dominating our use of time. Consider the three big buckets. We're going to analyze what to do with all three. Other reflections before we transition. I'm noticing that. All right, so some people had a bunch of no's, I'm sure. Did anybody have a yes? Did anybody have a yes?
I think, I said that the superintendent's, and it varies from presentation to presentation, but the superintendent's comments generally do say something about the current goals that are laid out under the turnaround action plan and how we're progressing on those goals. In my opinion, we could do more of that and have a more complete, report on that. But normally, some of that is at least included in the superintendent's comments. So
yeah, so some
there is some
percentage,
time.
how much time would you say the superintendent's comments take?
I think it usually takes somewhere in the neighborhood of, I would guess, 15 minutes.
All right, you said 1 to 5?
No,
Lower,
5 to
lower.
10 minutes.
5 to 10 minutes.
5 to 10
That's
minutes.
what everyone else is.
And what percentage of that, of those comments are normally focused on the goals that have been set about student performance?
Say a half, maybe.
All right, and so we could have 50% of one item, could be focused on student outcomes. And then the message there, I mean, hey, look, folks, we take victory wherever we can find it. Because the message is exactly the point you made. How can we grow that? How can we have that be an even more dominant part of that comments? I will say this, and anybody with superintendent in their title in the room, go ahead and just cover your ears for a moment so as to avoid trauma. Superintendent comments nationwide are generally garbage. It's what and I don't mean garbage is that they talk about stuff that is unimportant, doesn't matter. It's garbage and that it's almost never drives a focus on goals about student outcomes, but claims to. That's what for me makes it garbage. Is it's actually deceptive. It's like we're going to talk about student outcomes, and then instead they talk about we took kids on a we took the kids in the middle school went on a field trip this week. This is not a conversation about student outcomes, but we're pretending that it is. That's what for me makes superintendent comments garbage so often, and we're pretending that it is about student outcomes. It's really not. It's really not at all. And so I'm absolutely with you. Is that I think there's probably a smidgen of this, half of it maybe, that's focused on your goals for student outcomes, but why not let it be more than that? But if that's true that it's half, then you are 100% better than most school districts where the superintendent report is 0% student outcomes. It's just a recitation of the stuff that staff did this week that they feel good about on the inside. But it doesn't actually tell us have children grown, is there actually some improvement that we've demonstrated for students. And so yeah, superintendent comments, absolutely an opportunity to build upon. Anybody else have a yes? Anybody else have a yes? Okay, what was your yes?
My yes was, what's it? I could be lying. I remember we did recognitions for students, and there were.
You talking about item 2.1?
Yeah. Is that what we did recognitions for students, I think?
No,
That was the wrestling.
Yeah, and I feel like we recognized what they could do. A team came in and.
All right, so this is really important. This is really important. So let's dig into this. So I heard, and I think I heard somebody say for 2.1, we recognized some students who won a wrestling competition. Did I hear that correctly?
Yeah.
All right, so the first question is children winning a wrestling competition a demonstration of what those students know we're able to do?
is it a goal?
Yes or no?
It can be.
No, I didn't ask that question. I asked, is that a demonstration of what students know we're able to do?
Sure.
They can wrestle. We recognize.
It is most definitely an example of what students know we're able to do, 100%. Now, but somebody already jumped in. I don't know who it was. But what's the actual question? Do you have a goal about wrestling? Do you all plan now or at any time in the future to adopt a goal about wrestling? We don't know until we do community listening.
Only time will tell.
What?
Vision and values of the community, wrestling.
And overwhelmingly, as you're listening to the community, like, look, y'all, real talk, this literacy thing is for the birds. But wrestling,
I think that would
if
be
that's
like
what you say, then you bite it.
If wrestling takes over.
But until that day comes, and I do not predict it is in your immediate future, until that day comes, recognitions about students winning wrestling is a conversation about student outcomes, but it's not a conversation about your goals for student outcomes. And so that would be a hard no. However,
I have a question.
however,
If there is a value of like having rigorous sports or like having rigorous after school programming, and we are recognizing students who are winning awards, either wrestling or baseball, swimming, or.
so we don't have to use a hypothetical. I can give you an example of a district that adopted a goal about extracurricular. But you gotta think this through. Could the board adopt a goal about students participating in extracurricular activities?
Yeah.
This is a trick question. Could the board adopt a goal about students participating in extracurricular?
No, what they learn and know.
No, they could not. You will never have a goal about participation. Participation is
Yeah.
never an outcome. Participation is an output.
Yeah.
So that we know that they participated, it doesn't actually tell us. Look, I was, on the varsity football team on the bench. Nothing about what I know or are able to do. So participation rates are not a measurement children know or are able to do. But I know a district that did in fact adopt a goal about extracurricular. Anybody want to wager a guess at what that goal might have been?
The social emotional goal, maybe?
Nope. Good guess though.
50% of, like a certain percentage of, nope, never mind. I hate when you look away like that.
She learned the cues.
He's like this.
Is it a fitness goal?
Here's the goal that they adopted. So this is a district that already, this is a suburban district, let me start there. And their kind of literacy and numeracy rates were already basically at the top of the state. And so there's like, that doesn't really speak to us, because when we went out and listened to our community, that's not what they were talking about, because that's already happening for us. And so they said what our parents do care about when we went out and did the listening is additional opportunities above and beyond that. So the goal that the board adopted was the percentage of graduates who graduate having won a local regional, state, or national competition will increase from X% of graduates to Y% of graduates over this timeline. That is actually a student outcome. So if kids win a cooking competition, does it count?
Sure.
If they win a football championship, does it count?
Sure.
If they win an art competition, does it count?
Yeah.
If they're yes, it would. If they win a scuba diving competition, would that count?
Sure.
And in fact, if they win a juggling competition, it would count. What they said is we want our children to compete locally, regionally, statewide, and nationally, and win. And that was a priority for that particular community. In that context, your wrestlers would absolutely fit under that. In the absence of a goal like that, however, they absolutely would not. So what it really comes down to is what does our community care about most? And then you build goals around that. And so, yeah, I don't have to think of it as a hypothetical. I can give you an example of a district that adopted that goal. But their conditions are different from yours. So you'd have to go out and listen and figure out, is that something that rises to the top for our community? If it does, then that damn well better be your goal. But if it doesn't, then wrestlers, that's great that you won, but that's not where we want to focus our recognition. Guess where our coaching is that you focus your recognition on? Guess what we recommend you focus on?
Board goals.
Students that are meeting goals, that are meeting.
Yeah.
Goals.
Students who are making the most progress relative to goals. So if you have a goal around students being able to demonstrate self-regulation skills. This is something that I teach in the high schools that I work with. Teach self-regulation. This is a skill that can be learned. It is a measurable skill. We have a system, in my book, I have a system for measuring children's ability to demonstrate self-regulation. So imagine we have a goal that says we want to increase the percentage of students, K through 12, who can demonstrate self-regulation skills, from 40% who can demonstrate that today in August of 2024 to 80% who can demonstrate that in August of 2030. So that's the goal. So then the recognition part would be which students made the most growth relative to that goal. And we bring them into the board meeting and we celebrate them. It's like, hey, you started from the bottom, now you're here. Let's imagine you have a goal about literacy. These are the kids who showed up 2 grade levels behind, but they grew the most over this last semester. These are children who you are never celebrating. Let me emphasize this. These are children who you are probably never ever celebrating. Our children who are furthest from educational justice, making radical growth in the direction of justice. And I bet you if I go back and watch, you are never celebrating these children. But you could be if that's aligned to your goals. And so let your goals be justice oriented. Your recognitions become justice oriented as well. Right now, recognitions basically tend to follow whatever makes adults feel good. And we say that's just not a powerful basis for recognition. It turns children into tokenized political props. It's not actually a focus on what is the greatness that we are pulling for from our students. So yes, your recognitions is probably a hard no today, but as a real opportunity, let you watch as you create a culture that is focused on student outcomes. When you send the message, if you want shine from the board in this district, the only way to get that shine, show me important points on the board for my children in the area of our goals. Then we will have you down here. Parents, come down so we can recognize you too. Teachers who made it happen, come on down so we can recognize you too. Let's make a culture that says this is what we lift up most. I know in my most recent district, we were a perennial football champion, statewide football champion, which I don't know if you know, in Texas, that's kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
We would always celebrate our football teams for winning championships. We'd always celebrate our girls track team and basketball teams for winning championships. We never celebrated children for actually learning the things that were in our goals. And so when I joined the district, that's one of the first things we switched up. You can watch to this day, the district still prioritizes celebration around children going. And it's families that have never been invited to a board meeting before. Never been invited. We have disrespected them and marginalized them for decades. And now we say, you know what, come on up front. This is where you deserve to be. You think parents haven't embraced that with both arms open wide? What is possible for your children really emerges from the culture that you create. So I said, how you spend your time can be transformative. Any other guesses that anybody found? Any other guesses?
I found some maybes. To be honest, I don't remember exactly what we talked about at this specific meeting of this agenda we're looking at, but I think that potentially there might be, or at least an area for growth as well, around both the Health and Wellness Committee and the Career and Technical Committee. Those are 5.3 and 5.4, depending on what goals we choose. And based on some of the goals that we have already or currently in the turnaround action plan, it's possible that those could be student outcomes focused.
No, there is nothing in your turnaround action plan that could be a health and wellness student outcome. Nothing at all.
There's nothing.
The only
No.
small section, right, AJ, excellence in learning, I think you said is the only.
Yeah, there's nothing in your TAP that has anything to do with children growing relative to their health and wellness skills. Nothing whatsoever. There are things in there about what adults will do to create an environment that is healthful and wellness supportive. That's in there.
We have a CTE goal in there.
So what?
There is this one CTE goal.
Yeah.
That I believe is student outcome focus.
Yes. There's more in there about CTE programming, which would not be a student outcome, than there is about CTE performance, which would be. And so you have to be really, really discerning to identify that most of what's in your TAP, which I don't think is problematic, but from a governance perspective, most of what's in your TAP did not meet our threshold as a goal, because most of it's not about student outcomes. The vast majority, in fact, there's only one section there that's at all about student outcomes, and even it is hit or miss. That much of it is about what are the adult strategies that will be deployed, not about what will students know will be able to do. And this is like basic stuff. Like we talk about teaching and learning. The measure of a school system is not did teachers teach. Can you imagine that? Oh, Mr. Crable, talk about, well, I don't know what's wrong, little Ricky, I taught the material. If you didn't get it, that's his problem. Would you ever accept that? Absolutely not. What you would expect is your responsibility is to provide teaching that leads to learning, not just to provide teaching. The adult input is necessary, but insufficient. The measure of that adult input being deployed effectively is a student outcome. And so that's why, no, the strategies for how you get there would not be a goal. Whether or not you got there would be a goal. And so there are items in your TAP that could, and I think frankly are likely to become some of your goals. But most of what's in there would not. And so for health and wellness, absolutely not. For CTE, it is in fact possible to pull something out of your TAP that's related to career and technical education of what students would know and be able to do.
So let me rephrase. Is there a universe in which if we are hearing in our listening sessions, when we listen to our community, we hear, and I think based on things we hear from our community over time, that social emotional wellness and learning is a strong value of our community. But I'm not sure how that translates into a vision that could become a goal.
Yeah, so if it's a value, you could perhaps have a guardrail around SEL. The superintendent will not allow a reduction in our SEL strategies. The superintendent will not allow a culture that is not socially and emotionally supportive. And so that could be a value, and your guardrails are how you protect values. But the question that you ask is really apropos, is it a vision of our community? And so if it is, you can line up with a goal like the one I described, the percentage of students who demonstrate, who've grown in their ability to demonstrate self-regulation, the percentage of students who've grown in their ability to demonstrate metacognition, the percentage of students who've grown in their ability to demonstrate empathy or active listening or responsibility or accountability. Like these are measurable knowledge and skills that students should have in the area of social emotional wellness. And if you were actually measuring children growing in those areas, which again, I literally wrote a book on this topic, so I'm not making this up, like this, there are school systems doing this, then yes, that could be a goal, that could be part of the vision for what students know and are able to do. But right now, from my discussion with your staff several months ago, there is nothing whatsoever that I hear you all doing that is measuring children's growth socially, emotionally. What you all are doing is measuring, are we deploying adult strategies that should create a healthy social emotional environment? But you are not currently measuring, to my knowledge, you don't even have strategies in place designed to grow children socially and emotionally. They're designed to create an environment for children, not to create growth for children. And that's not a bad thing. I'm not suggesting it's a bad thing. I'm just saying it's not a goal thing, that's all. It could be a guardrail thing, but it's not a goal thing currently. Anybody else, any other yeses or potential yeses before we transition?
I think there's a potential yes in the public comment is hit or miss in terms of who shows up. But there have been times when we've had educators show up and specifically reference how students are doing on various benchmarks that are in the TAP plan. I know I can't remember if that happened at this particular meeting at all, but I know it has happened at a couple of our meetings.
I remember when I was, I've seen exactly what you described. I remember when I was board chair very early on, we had a frequent flyer. You all may have frequent flyers who show up at like all the board meetings to have something to say. Maybe your district's different than mine, but we have frequent flyers. Like they were practically every board meeting, always signing up for public comments, always had comments. One of our frequent flyers was this old white dude. He didn't even live in the city. He lived out in the suburbs, but he showed up at every single board meeting and signed up to speak. And the only thing he ever talked about was he'd pull out a segment of our student literacy data, read it back to us, and then offer ideas or resources about how to improve it. That's the only thing he ever talked about. It was crazy. And in fact, the reason his face is all permanently burned into my mind is because at one of these times he was reciting our data back to us and mentioned there is this grant that is specifically designed to serve this specific group of students in literacy. Have you all applied for it? Well, like an idiot, I was doing superintendent. I don't know. Superintendent's like, no, I don't think we have. Come to find out, we were eligible. We applied for. We got like $4 million specifically for interventions for that. Like the dude, I was like, brother, you can come to every.
Brother, like you a job.
And look, if you bring your money, come to every board meeting. I mean, he showed up. He literally brought millions of dollars to support literacy in the district just by showing up in public comment. So yes, I would absolutely say, is that possible? I have lived it, and it was stunning. Like we had to recognize him from the dais the next week. Like, hey y'all, just let y'all know, this old white dude who stays out in the suburbs, he showed up with $4 million. So just check it out. Like, do your dance, baby, do your dance. So is it possible? Yes. However, I literally only in my entire school board watching career have one example, and it's that guy. I literally have no other examples that I've witnessed of community members coming and looking at the telescope through a student outcomes goal lens rather than from adult inputs lens. So that's the thing to watch out for, is that most of your public comment has a telescope flipped the other direction. They're here to talk about an adult input that they do or don't like that may be having an impact on student outcomes. But what they're almost never talking about is, here's a student outcome goal, and here's data that shows how you're performing relative to that. Oh, and by the way, here's a related adult input. Almost never. I've seen it one time, and it was literally worth millions of dollars. So maybe encourage more of that, because maybe y'all get paid too.
I would also say with that example, it's like, that's a matter of luck. That's not like intentional.
This is not the strategy.
Yeah, it's not intentional design on, like, even if we do have like community members showing up with information, it's not by our design, so it's not predictable. It literally be like luck, and so I wouldn't even count it.
Like, you do not want to base the welfare of your children on, I hope some white dude from Connecticut comes through this week. Like, that is not your strategy for improving student outcomes. That can't be your strategy. And so, generally speaking, public comment will be a hard no, generally speaking. But it is possible. I have seen it one time.
Have you seen other districts change their public comment to be focused around student outcomes?
No, I've never seen that, and I've never encouraged it. You can do it. You all actually have a tremendous amount of leeway, as I understand it, legally regarding the protocols you put in place for public comment. That being said, personally, I would never, I can't imagine a time where I would ever recommend restricting public comment in that way. But you all could probably do it and get away with it based on Rhode Island statutes. But that's not a recommendation we make. So now that we've identified items that are focused on your goals for student outcomes or not, the next step in the analysis is to, next to each item, put a K, a D, or an M. Keep, delete, or modify. So for every item where the answer is no, where you put a no next to it, now you're gonna go back and next to that no, you'll put either a K for keep, a D for delete, or an M for modify. So let's do the first one together. Call to order. How much time do you spend on this item?
Minimal.
5 seconds.
5 seconds.
Yeah.
All right, got it. Is this item focused on your goals for student outcome?
No.
No. You want to keep it, delete it, or modify it?
Keep.
Why keep?
I mean, based on, it's statutorily required, but based just on student outcomes, I'd say delete it.
Is it statutorily required?
But it tells us if we have a quorum or not.
Yeah.
Yes,
we
it
need to
is.
go-
It is
Yes,
statutorily
it is
required.
statutorily required.
So what do you currently do to demonstrate that you have a quorum?
Call to order.
Names.
So what is, just so we're all on the same page.
So doesn't your roll call also establish a quorum?
Yes.
So why do you need both? If it's, so I would argue to you that your call to order is accomplished by your roll call. And so if what you're saying is that you need to demonstrate a quorum as a legal requirement, which is probably true. All I'm saying is you may be fulfilling that legal requirement twice, which just makes me wonder why.
Well, I think the other thing that call to order gets everyone to shut up and lets them know that the meeting is starting. So I think we could go call to order right into roll call.
You have to have a mechanism for kicking off the meeting.
Because sometimes it doesn't start on time.
And you have to notify the public that it's beginning.
Again, it'd be the same as the roll call? Call to order and then do the roll call and the same agenda item?
Okay, so here's the thing to notice. I'm not offering you a good or bad or right or wrong. I am suggesting to you question everything. Question everything. Because let me tell you where your current agenda came from. In 1935, there was a guy named Bob who served on the Providence, I'm making up Bob's name and date. There was a guy named Bob who served on the Providence School Board. And Bob decided, you know what, we should do it this way. Let's have a call to order, then a pledge of allegiance, a roll call, and then the superintendent's comments. And then the board members who came along after Bob, guess what they chose to do with the agenda?
Same as Bob.
Let's do the same, hey, Bob did work, let's do the same thing as Bob did. The board members who served before any of you served, guess what they did?
Same as Bob.
Guess what y'all doing?
Same as Bob.
I don't wanna do the same as Bob.
I wanna,
Look, some dude in 1935 is running your board meetings.
I'm racist.
The answer here isn't what's good or bad or right or wrong. The answer here is question everything. That's all. That's the message here. Question everything.
You can skip the quorum and just have the president open the meeting by saying we have a quorum, the meeting begins.
Done.
Because that starts the meeting.
And so you can do that. That would take 1 second, which is less than 5 seconds. So we've already saved 4 seconds. And you wouldn't have to do a roll call.
Right.
So
We have a call. We're now in order. Done.
is the Pledge of Allegiance required at all?
That's a good question. Is it legally required?
All right.
No, I don't
All right,
think
so the
so.
question is, so the first question is 1.2. Is this student outcome goals focused or not?
No.
No. Keep, delete, or modify. So you probably have the legal freedom to delete it. This is, you have to look at statute to see if it's statutorily required. There are states where it is statutorily required. I don't think Rhode Island is one of them. But
Florida.
and look, if you watch my old board meetings, you'll notice that the board starts every single board meeting first with prayer, second with the Pledge of Allegiance to the American flag, and then third with the Pledge of Allegiance to the Texas flag.
What? That's the second.
Like that's close.
That's how we get down over here, y'all. That's how we get down. And I ask the same questions when I shut up there. Yeah, I'm asking y'all, and people like, this is just what we do here. We ride with Bob. Is basically what he said. We ride with Bob. And so they still do. To this day, a pastor, some faith leader will come in, and, imam, rabbi, somebody will come in. They'll do a blessing or a prayer. They'll do the Pledge of Allegiance to the American flag, Pledge of Allegiance to the Texas flag. Every single morning. And so this is going to vary. There are going to be times when you choose to keep things that are not student outcomes goals focused. And that's not good or bad or right or wrong. I just want you to not do it because Bob did it. I want you to do it because you choose to do it.
AJ, you should know that Providence City Council does a convocation before every meeting. They pray before they start their meeting here.
There you go. So did we.
It's not that weird.
Let's jump down to item 1.3. Keep, delete, or modify.
We were gonna combine it with. Modify.
Yeah, 1.4. Keep, delete, or modify.
Modify,
What modification would you make?
make it goal, aligned with goals, 50% aligned with goals.
Here is your task for the rest of the items on here. Anywhere where you put a no, now put a keep, K for keep, D for delete, M for modify. Have fun. If you choose modify, give us a sentence or something about what is the modification you make. Keep, delete, or modify, K, D, or M. For every single one where there's a no, put a K, a D, or an M. If you choose M, give us about a sentence or so. What is the modification?
And a modification would be to add something that doesn't exist at all.
Absolutely. Modification would be anything. Be creative. Be creative. Yeah, free your mind. You kill it, Bob, today.
I haven't figured it out.
AJ, while they're doing that, I already did, I'm gonna tell you. Hi. I forgot what I was gonna say. Oh, Medea and Jenny are not here. Would you be willing to do a one-off training with them on this, or is that too much to ask?
No, whatever we need to do to set y'all for success. As we told you during the 2-day, you will not out-hustle us.
Right.
Actually,
And 19.
we
Tyrone
are.
is already, the board, we did this already, the leadership, yeah.
I
Steve
would-
had something.
I would just say, because this is technically a board meeting, it's public, it's a special meeting, it is being
She
recorded.
can't hear it.
So, they can't hear?
No, she texted me.
Oh, okay, never mind. Somebody moved.
That's why.
Forget I
You
said.
mean my dad, governance dad jokes are being recorded for posterity?
They are, but she said she can't really see or hear from where the camera is back there.
Gotcha.
AJ, can I clarify one thing? This is, just practice, right? We're not making like actual decisions right
We're
now.
making no decisions tonight. That's what, yeah, there are no decision-making happening tonight. Tonight is the night for just learning and discernment. Tonight is not the night for decision-making.
So feel free to get creative, you're not gonna break it.
Yeah, go wild.
No. Steve, no.
Yeah, feel free to go crazy, kicking Bob to the curb.
It need to be up, no, okay. Oh, I wish we could get rid of it.
My dad used to put this actually on.
That's a good ready your board meeting. Stop it. You too young to know about Sideshow Bob. Come on.
That's what my dad called me when my dreads were little. They tried to torture me till I cut them off, but I didn't. My mom said they were gonna put nair in my head while I'm sleeping.
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
Yeah, Child Protective Services.
Anybody else want a snack?
Thank you so
You
much.
gotta have a little trauma, AJ, to be in an elected position, you know? My mom's like, why you signed up to get yelled at for a living? I said, 'cause y'all yelled at me so much, I got used to it.
I got used to it. This is all I know. This is all I know.
And then Martha has been also across the way.
She does, you have to walk around the table to get it.
Oh, thank you.
All right, let's check in with some folks. We got some keys, we got some deletes, we got some modified. Let's start on the ruthless end first. Who's got some deletes for me? Be ruthless, folks. Be ruthless. Who got some deletes for me?
All right, that's under the table. I have one delete. Yeah.
Do it.
I have modified, but I have one delete, which was the board comment. That one is deleted.
I had 3 modifieds, the rest were all deletes.
Well, run it
Which
down.
ones did you modify?
10.1, and then
Why? Little sentence.
1.4. So 10.1, because we need to know about the health of our facilities, but maybe we could do it in a way that focuses around student outcomes, how it relates. And then 1.4, which one was that? That was superintendent comment, and then 1.3, which is combined roll call with call to order.
And you deleted everything else?
Deleted everything else. Yeah, I feel like some of this stuff is useful like further down the road, but I think for right now, like it feels a little irrelevant to like just state of the board.
I only had one delete, which was the pledge.
It was?
The pledge of allegiance.
I'm so surprised at you.
If we don't have to, I'd rather skip it.
That doesn't save a lot of
What are you
time.
modifying, Steve?
It saves a little, I think it also.
I think it's-
So everything else I think modifies, so I think, we talked about modifying the combining the call to order and roll call and modified simpler form that Sarah suggested. I think the superintendent's report could be modified, superintendent's comments, so that we ask the superintendent specifically to make the superintendent's comments focus on the goals and how we're doing on them. I think the recognitions, is sort of a delete, it's sort of a modified. My suggestion would be that we actually take that out of the regular board meeting and have it half an hour before the start of the regular board meeting, have a period of recognition so people could come, board members could choose to show up to that or not. So whatever, as board members are getting there, getting ready for the meeting, we can do the recognitions, and then those families can go home and not have to sit through the whole board meeting if they don't want to. For 3, approval of the agenda, I said keep, and all of 4, I said I think all of 4 we should keep, because they don't take up a lot of time. Actually, in practice, we just had a single motion for items 4.2 to 4.4. We made a motion to approve those all as a single item. There was, the discussion on that consisted of me saying, because I'm the chair of the finance subcommittee, that all of these had been reviewed by the finance subcommittee, and we were suggesting that they all be approved. There was a vote. That took almost no time, and I also said that that was going to be in lieu of an actual finance committee report. So there was no, or a finance committee update, so there was no report on the agenda, so 5.2 didn't take place. All of the other updates, I would say I would modify. I would actually combine those with school board member comments. I don't know why we have two separate times for each of us to speak at the meeting. And I would say I would modify those school board committee updates so that they would be only in the case of an update being necessary. So a lot of times I don't necessarily have anything to say other than we review these contracts, they all look fine, we should vote on them as a pack. I suggest we vote on them as a package. So, policy and planning, I said keep, but only because I think that we do have if we're gonna make policies, we have to review them twice, right, before they get approved. So that's sort of procedurally necessary. Sarah?
Is that a law or a policy?
So our policy. So that's your policy, but the only thing you have to do is adopt a policy as a matter of state law. You don't need a report. I mean, it's your discretion, but I've been looking at this with an eye towards what's actually required.
There's very little on here that's actually legally required.
There's almost nothing. The only thing that's required is, and I'd have to check this, is that you do have to approve the contracts, but that can be done summarily with a consent agenda. You do have to approve policies, but you don't need a report from the policy committee because you're gonna get the policy that the committee gives you.
It could be on consent as well.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt you.
No, so I was just, and, you know, everything else, the presentations, I think we should modify. I think we should limit the time of presentations as much as possible and make sure that they, you know, maybe limit the number of slides, because a lot of times the presentations do eat up a significant chunk of time.
Can I suggest why that happens?
Yeah.
Especially like academics, I'm not invited to come that often to present. So when I do come, there's a lot of student outcome data that I want you to know about. So I think it is possible to create more frequent student outcome sessions for you and have them be briefer. But to do them like once or twice a year, that's when you're getting into these presentations that are like extremely long.
I mean, I think I was thinking more that, I don't know, like the finance, the budget, we review it we review the whole thing in the finance subcommittee and then we review it again in the regular meeting. That seems like it's like stuff like that, we could probably find a way.
Not everybody from the full board attends those finance committee
Yeah.
meetings. Maybe we shouldn't give it, they want to give it to the whole full board.
I understand this, but I think we could also maybe work more with giving people access to documents and reports and allow them to review them on their own and not do the whole report in the meeting, just as a thought. So, there may be a way to work.
Steve, did you have any additional items? Was that your last one?
That was pretty much it.
Let me do a quick rundown, because you're doing a lot of heavy lifting. First, you made a comment about recognitions to try to put it at the beginning of the meeting so that families can get out. I know a lot of boards that have done that. However, I would recommend keeping, if your recognitions are going to be about your goals for student outcomes, I recommend keeping those in the board meeting as part, because that counts as part of your 50%. Like, that's what you do want the meeting to be about. But yes, I think that could be literally the first thing on the agenda definitely before tired superintendent comments. Definitely before that. I would have the very first thing on the agenda, it would be, okay, we call to order. We have some students who have made amazing growth. We want to honor them. We want to honor their families. We want to honor their teachers. That's the first order of business. I think you can absolutely do that. The only time I would do student recognitions, or the only time I do recognitions outside of the board meeting, if it's not actually related to student outcome, your goals for student outcomes, then I punt that outside the board meeting. But I'd punt it way out. I wouldn't just punt it to the beginning of the meeting. I'd punt it all the way back to the building. And let the recognitions happen at the building where it is most meaningful to the students. That is far more meaningful to students to be recognized in front of their peers than to be recognized in front of a bunch of old heads that they don't know. And so that's the thought about recognitions. You also mentioned the consent agenda. Anytime your consent agenda takes more than about 10 seconds to get through, you're doing it wrong. So Robert's Rules of Order doesn't even call And so anything other than I move it, I second it, all in favor, aye, all opposed. Anything beyond that is actually technically out of order. There shouldn't, by definition, there should not ever be debate on a consent agenda. There may be a removal of an item from the consent agenda, but our coaching, do that 2 or 3 days before the board meeting. Don't do that at the board meeting. At the board meeting, the consent agenda should already be hammered out. Just vote. In fact, I know one board chair, she didn't even do all that. She actually read Robert's Rules of Order and said, oh, wait a minute, I can do things by acclamation. And so when it came to a consent agenda, is there anyone opposed to the consent agenda? It's approved by acclamation, and then she moved on. Like, that was it. Didn't get touched. That is how the consent agenda is supposed to be utilized. There should be 0 comments, 0 discussion, 0 notifications associated with the consent agenda. So what it means is, make sure that you've done your homework. The things on consent actually belong there, and the things that aren't on consent have been removed, preferably before the board meeting, preferably at least 3 days before the board meeting. So this requires board members to do your homework. But ideally, the consent agenda is entirely untouched. It is just passed and you moved on. By the way, I know of school boards that have put approval of the agenda on the consent agenda. Just one less item to call roll on. So they can, my encouragement is become maniacal about how do we invest our time in student outcomes rather than adult processes. Become maniacal about it. This is a game of inches. And I realize this sounds crazy. Like this brother AJ, he's talking about saving 10 seconds here and 30 seconds there. Yes, I am. Like that is the message you want to send, that we are absolutely on fire for how do we center the needs of our students furthest from educational justice above all else. And in every 10 seconds here, 15 seconds there, absolutely counts. You got down to, you mentioned the board, member comments. I just, to be honest with you, when I was board chair, the first thing I deleted from the agenda was board member comments. And under the rationale that this is almost never used as board member comments, it is almost always used as board member campaigning, and do that on your own topic. Like if you want to have a campaign meeting with the public come listen, you can do that. I'm just not going to have that on our agenda. So I cut that with the swiftness. I was not popular. Let's see, presentations. I love your thinking on presentations. Here's what we did at my most recent district. We banned PowerPoints from board meetings. So but board members still got to review PowerPoints. How did we do this? Yeah. So one of the changes we made, and a strange, we strongly encourage you all, is the board should receive all of these materials 7 to 14 days before the board meeting, which will be considered. We consider anything less than that disrespectful to the board's time. Like it is absolutely disrespectful to just give a board 200 pages of material and say you've got a day to read this. We consider that absolutely disrespectful to that. How much y'all get paid again? The answer is nothing. Like I realize it's not technically nothing, but it's basically nothing.
AJ, if you
to ask you all to be reading hundreds of pages of materials with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days notice, we think is disrespectful. Our recommendation is as minimum 7. I personally am a big fan of 12 to 14 days out. When you do that, then you can say the rule is whatever presentations you want the board to receive have to be received 7 to 14 days out. And in fact, staff got so kind of geeked up about it, they started recording YouTube videos of them presenting the presentations and sending that 14 days out. And so the staff still got to present, and board members still got to see the presentation, as well as read the presentation 14 days in advance. If they had questions, they could submit them 13, 12, 11, 10 days in advance and get answers so that they could come to the board meeting fully prepared, having seen the presentation, asked their questions, and received answers before they ever stepped foot into a board meeting.
But AJ,
right now,
That sounds
what's going to
dangerous
happen
to me.
is your attorney's going to raise a question about, is this going to generate a walking quorum? The
Yeah.
answer is
Yeah.
no, long as what you do is the superintendent receives all of them, and then at a certain cutoff date, sends one document back to everybody simultaneously, or just attach it to the agenda so that it's publicly available. And then that in every other state that we've worked in that has gotten past any of the concerns about open meeting laws.
So can I just, talk about what that means for agenda setting?
yes, that's my point.
Just because to be able to give a quality presentation,
that far in advance, then I need to be informed, or whoever's giving the presentation, that that's what we're going to be presenting on well in advance of that, so that we can prepare quality.
Is 5 years enough time?
5 years enough time.
Is knowing what's gonna be on the board agenda 5 years in advance enough time for you to prepare?
I don't need that much time.
I'm asking you, is that enough time? Because according to this process, that is what you will have. So part of this process is the board will adopt a monitoring calendar that will say exactly which slices of its goals will be monitored during which month, every single month for the next 60 months. So the question is, would that meet your need for advanced
That would
studies?
absolutely meet my need.
Hey, folks, look, we ain't brand new with this. We've been in the game for a minute. We slick with this. Like, it is possible for the board to actually modify its behavior to be focused on student outcomes. It takes a lot of work. And to get things to the point you're actually trying to make before I cut you off, to get things well polished 14 days in advance, that's a lot of work, and it's going to take some major revisions by the staff. And it usually takes staff, 2, 3, sometimes even 4 months to make those changes. So there's not like just press a button and it magically happens, board members. Like, what I'm suggesting are major business procedure changes for the staff, and will take them 2, 3, and sometimes even 4 months to change. But they are changeable. Bob is defeatable.
I appreciate that. I think one of the challenges we have is when agenda items change after we met on the agenda. It's very difficult to be able to get the information to the board that they need in a way that's quality, and in a way that we would feel comfortable having publicly available with too short of notice.
Yeah, the rule that we recommend, and this will be you all's decision, and you'll literally be getting interviewed about this soon, so you'll have time to say something about it. The rule that we recommend is that anything that has not been received by the board 7 to 14 days in advance is ineligible to be on the agenda. And so it just automatically gets punted to the next agenda. Like, respect the board's time. And the way you do that is you give them adequate time to be able to do their job, to be fiduciaries, to be the voice of the community. But that does mean, especially since they're not meaningfully compensated for this role, that they need receipt of materials well enough in advance so that they can honor whatever there is paying their bills and still honor their obligations as board members.
So,
Yes.
so the way I'm picturing this working, what you're describing is that the reports are all done in advance. We get the reports. We then do our homework and come up with questions and things that we might, whatever, things we want to raise. Then at the actual board meeting, instead of the full report, we're given a brief summary of the report, and then we have an opportunity to have a discussion about it based on our reading of the report. So
No, we would recommend that after you submit questions, you receive written answers to all the questions at least 3 days before the board meeting when the final agenda is posted, and that's just a public document. So everybody in the community can see, here are all the questions that were asked, here are all the answers that were given. So ideally, now you've got 3 days to read the responses. There's no excuse for showing up to the board meeting unprepared. And then I get to ask trifling questions like, wait a minute, that question was already asked and answered in the meeting. Did you not prepare for the meeting? What are you doing instead of loving children?
So
It's like the RFP process.
Can I ask as procedural, or just, I didn't share earlier, but, I guess I'm trying to flip this a little bit. As you're looking at this agenda, everything in blue, like, we have the opportunity to leverage these hyperlinks, as you were just saying. So, like, we can publish information, and that is part of the record. So when we have presentations now, those presentations are posted. What's happening in practice now, for a number of reasons, is that board members aren't seeing the presentations until the public is also seeing the presentations. So we're missing an opportunity to work together with the superintendent and their team to be able to actually do work outside of the meeting, so that when we're in the meeting, we can spend a lot more of that time on actual student outcomes focused goal monitoring.
There's another even equally important point here, which is, notice I started our meeting tonight by saying, we will be making no decisions tonight. Tonight is not the time for decision making. You're gonna get used to hearing that refrain from us, because our coaching is to the extent practical. It won't always be practical, but like 99.9% of the time you can do this. Cognition and action should be two separate times. You thinking about an item and you acting on an item should take place in two separate times, preferably with you having been able to sleep in between, have a full night's sleep in between those two things. Like humans, we just don't do our best decision making when we are presented with an item and have to make a decision about that item all at the same period. We will do our best decision making when we're presented with an item, we think about it, we go home, we go to bed, we wake up, and then sometime after that, we actually take action on the item. And so that's actually what we're recommending, is that when you change things up, when you get materials 14 days in advance, you have the time to be thoughtful about it. And then you have questions, 10 days in advance. You have answers 3 days in advance. Now, when you come to the board meeting, we're not doing a bunch of brand new thinking and seeing a bunch of brand new presentations. We've done our thinking. We've done our reflecting. We've been able to be in discernment. We've been able to pray about it, talk to people in our community about it. And now we're actually coming prepared to make a decision. That is not, from what I can tell, how you all do business today. That is absolutely how we would counsel you to do business going forward.
Yes, I love it. It sounds really exciting. It sounds like it's gonna set the adults up for success and hopefully help us change our behaviors so that we can help student behaviors and outcomes change.
That's it. And I can't think of any boards that have made that shift that have gone back. It's like, yeah, you know what, just get it to us 3 days in advance. I literally don't know a single board in the country that's ever gone back. Like, once people got used to getting their materials in advance, being able to think about it, talk to community members, pray over it, like, nobody is saying, hey, let's have less time.
I think the other observation I was hoping to share, if I may, was just that I think when I went through and thought about like delete, modify, I wanted to modify a lot of things. Most of that was just move it into consent agenda. And I think some of the concern, and I will try to make an appropriate I statement here. I noticed that I feel responsible to use my time in the board meeting to help keep the public informed about things, even if those things technically already happened in a committee meeting or in another space that was publicly available information. And I noticed that that is then taking up extra time that we could be, or I could be spending on talking about student outcomes focused goals and our progress toward those. And so when I looked at the agenda, I thought about, is it possible, as an example, item 5.6, that wonky item is my item, typically, I'm giving an update there. Is there a reason I have not done this consistently, but I could create a memo or a short one-page thing?
It could have been an email, absolutely.
It could have been an email, but then if I'm concerned about the piece that's informing the public, then could I make that memo or email public? Add it to the
agenda is one of these blue links that they can click on, absolutely.
Yep. Yes, and so I think I looked, without going item by item, I feel like a whole bunch of these meeting items could have been an email, right? Like a whole bunch of these can fall under that. So that there's more flexibility when looking at that agenda to really only talk about the things in the meeting that actually are talking about the student outcomes.
Yeah.
Goals. And so, and just to that point, just a +1 on the, I think school board comments and maybe even superintendent comments could be deleted because that's just too vague anyway. Yeah. It's sort of like a miscellaneous, when like you move from one apartment to another and you mark some boxes miscellaneous and then like 2 years later you're like, what the F did I put in that miscellaneous box? And then you find the power cord to your old iPhone that you didn't even need. Like that's what I'm thinking of, right? So like that's not, if something is actually essential, it should fall under some more specific agenda item. And so I think that I would just, even with superintendent's comments, I love hearing from Dr. Montañez when he's here and Dr. Dillon right now. And just shout out to Dr. Dillon. I don't know if you were watching earlier, AJ, but there were actually like some updates on student outcomes.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
That's where that's-
Oh, no, actually, I've seen that before.
Yeah.
When you all get updates on tap, that there are actually
Yeah.
updates about student yes.
So but I think that doesn't have to be superintendent comments at the beginning of the meeting, that like, if we want to demonstrate with our agenda itself that we are focused on these student outcomes, that having these vague items like that doesn't necessarily demonstrate to folks. And having been on the other side of it before I was on the board, if I looked at that as a mom, I'd be like, what the heck are you talking? I don't know. That doesn't give me any information about what you're gonna talk about.
Yeah, three things here. And you all gonna have to pull out your pencil and paper one more time for this activity. Three things. One, our coaching is generally that everything that is consent eligible, everything that your law allows to be on consent starts life on the consent agenda. And that you have a process long before the board meeting for requesting things be moved off of consent. But the default is 100% of items that the law allows to be on consent start on consent. That'd be approval of the agenda, that'd be all the consent items, that'd be all your committee updates, that'd be your policy updates, that'd be your action items, that'd be your presentations, it'd be everything. 100% of everything would start life on the consent agenda. And only if board members ask to remove it before the board meeting, at least 3 days before the board meeting, does it get moved down to the action section. But that you liberally use your consent agenda and then allow board members to pull stuff if they want. But this stuff is not pulled by default, that a board member actually has to take. Right now, your time is squandered by default. What we would say is your time should only be squandered when you say it should be squandered. So that's one piece of this puzzle. The second thing is, there's a bunch of stuff that could be email messages, there could be a report. I know one of the things that I changed as board chair is no committee updates were allowed to even be considered on the agenda unless the board had received a written update from the committee chair at least 3 days in advance. And so if you didn't send a written update to your colleagues at least 3 days before the board meeting, it wasn't even eligible to be considered as a item for discussion. Basically, respect your colleagues' time was the message. Respect your colleagues' time. Here's the third item. How long would you all say this meeting lasted? How long did it last?
At least 5 hours.
You said 4 hours?
5.
5 hours. All right. So in order for 50% of this to be focused on student outcomes, how much time is that? All right. It's time for you to delete, modify one more time. This time, you have not done enough deletions or modifications until 50% of the time in this meeting can be focused on monitoring progress toward your goals, whether through recognitions or through a specific action item for goal monitoring. So you need to keep, delete, modify this agenda. Imagine it's still going to be 5 hours. I'm sorry for you, that sounds horrible, but we'll work on length of time later. Imagine that this is going to continue to be a 5-hour meeting, but you're going to commit that half of your time will be spent monitoring progress of the goals and recognizing students for making progress with goals. That's going to be 2.5 hours. Your job now is to go back and do another round of keep, delete, modify until you have deleted and modified enough items that half of the time has been freed up. Questions about this activity?
What if I would delete most of them and then add new items?
Whatever you got to do to get to the point where half of the time is focused on student outcome. You need to delete and modify your way to half of this agenda being focused on student outcomes. Half of the agenda either receiving monitoring reports, usually from your academic officer or your superintendent rather, about student performance relative to the goals, or recognitions of students who made progress relative to the goals. Those are pretty much your only two items that would count as being focused on your goals for student outcomes. So you need to keep, delete, modify your way to half of this meeting being those two items and everything else fitting into the other half of the meeting. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. Can they delete or get rid of the public comment? Because half the time, those public comments, we have 20, 30 people that sign up for public comment, and the bylaws only allow 30 minutes for public comment.
So here's the thing, my understanding, and your attorneys there should correct me, is that there is not a legal requirement, and that the use of, public comments is completely regulatable by the board. And so what I would say is, you all, one of your modifications would be, what is the change that I'm going to make to cause, public comments to fit within the other 50% that's not focused on our goals? And there's a bunch of ways that you could do that. But that's on you all to decide what that looks like. Do you keep your public comments as they are, and then you find ways to compress other items? Do you compress other items, but also compress, public comment? All that is a y'all decision. But you've got a few moments. Go ahead and figure out how to keep the loop, modify your way to half of your time being having a monitoring report and conversation about your goals and the progress made toward your goals for student outcomes, and recognitions of students for making progress toward your goals for student outcomes. Enjoy your task. Staff, y'all should definitely be doing this as well.
We are, thank you.
Can you scroll down?
This is
That's what took me so long.
that's why I wanted to.
We get 30
Guys, 30 minutes.
Yes.
Add in, you want to go past the 30 minutes, tell us it has to be about student outcomes. Right, so like, maybe we can adapt to 30 minutes.
Right, because 30 bylaws, it's only 30 minutes.
Right.
But when we have 30 people, 35 people at 3 minutes apiece, how much is that? That's an hour and a half, that's even more,
Yeah.
depending on how long they take or do they stop at 3 minutes.
Right.
Exactly.
I think we actually need for, we're not taking any action. Correct.
If the jury meetings, I don't know if they form that.
Okay, so who's the vice chair? Yours? I make a motion that we adjourn.
And then
We'll
we'll
continue
say-
to do this
Yeah, we
after
should
we
chat.
adjourn first.
Let's just check in.
We are trying to.
Call Sarah. Call Sarah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Call Sarah for.
Because when we had our first meeting, we didn't have a quorum when we did an ethics training.
So you
Yeah,
can't,
but it was posted in a certain way.
The meeting is just no longer a quorum.
you can't do action.
Yeah, we can't do any business.
We can, yeah, we can have training. So,
That's what they did the first. And
first,
yeah,
you could have.
Charlie was there and said that that was fine. That we could do non. So that's
I know that they can involve people to, you're learning about changing how people submit on it, like possibly having a drop down menu where it says this belongs to Steve, this belongs to, that way, like, and then having in real time people from those offices, when the people come up and we can direct them to that table where they can just go there and kind of get their problem solved without taking up public comment time.
Yeah, I think we also should make like a complaint system, and, if you go through the proper complaint system, then like you are more likely to get what you want. If we get
Like
people
the
coming and act a
communication
fool and they get what they want, they're gonna keep coming and acting a fool.
Or in the same way, in the same way that we're asking people to submit reports in advance, we could ask for public comments in advance and then
So if you will kind of.
post those, we probably want to have somebody read through it. to make
Sometimes
sure
we
they
have them still at
meet these
4:30,
standards.
5 o'clock. so we can
Right
public
before,
comment.
but maybe we have to close it then, like.
But I'm saying-
It's normally closed at 4 o'clock, and I keep telling people that, but no one wants to hear
I'm
that.
saying that people would
And then when
submit
they
their
come to the
public
meetings,
comments
You're
so
allowed to speak.
we could
Yeah, we
read
gotta
through them
choose.
in
Exactly.
advance, but not necessarily have them speak at the meeting.
Like get them answered in agreement.
So,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
I know one of the changes I know one of the changes that one of the boards we work with made is that public comments had to be submitted 3 days before the board meeting. If you had to sign up, if you wanted to publicly comment, you had to sign up 3 days before the board meeting. Any guess why they did that?
Probably so they can direct the comment so who can solve it.
That's exactly it.
I think.
Is that
that's the right
by having
thing.
people sign up in advance, it gave the superintendent and their staff time to call people and say, hey, I know she signed up. Do you have a concern that we could try to address right now? And like the majority, out of, if there were 10 people signed up 3 days in advance, like maybe 1 or 2 would show up because nobody wants to come to a school board meeting. Like anybody like, man, you know what? It's Thursday night, yo. We can go to the club or we can go to the board meeting. Like nobody's picking the board meeting. People are showing up usually because they have a need to be addressed. And so what they found is when people sign up 3 days in advance, the staff could generally solve that need in that amount of time. And then it saved those folks could be home with their families rather than being at a board meeting. And the board meeting then had more time to spend on our students actually growing. So there's a lot of, if there's anything you take away from this conversation, the thing to take away is Bob don't have to run you. Like you can make decisions about how you spend your time, and you have a ridiculous amount of autonomy in how to decide how to use your time. And the whole point of this activity isn't to tell you what was the right way or the wrong way to do it bad. I'm not making any recommendations. Nothing I've said tonight is a recommendation to you. I've given you examples, but 0 recommendations, except for this one. Question everything. That's the recommendation that I offer you. Question everything. And then create something that you all believe honors how you want to spend your time. Before we transition away from this conversation about agenda evaluation, I just want to open the floor real quick for people to share. What do we take away from this conversation? And of course, make it a nice statement. Anybody who wants to share before we transition? What will you take away from this conversation? Yeah.
Before we get to that, Mr. AJ, we have members who do need to leave out. Do you know about how much longer? Thank you.
No, this was my way of closing out.
Okay.
I'd say I realize how much I would prefer to have much of this done outside of, how much I would prefer to have a lot of the work done outside of the actual meeting.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I think so I work at a workforce board, and, I see this, I'm like, wait, this is what we do, right? Like, our subcommittees are a mess on our workforce board, but our main board, we have a calendar for a whole year. All the meetings are scheduled. We have at least 60 to 80% of the agenda items already built out. And my board executive director said, my advice to you when you go on the school board is that nothing should be a surprise at the meeting, right? And so it's like, wait, that's what she was saying. And then I also I say I started as a pragmatic disruptor, and now I'm in between that and a reformer. And I look at these agendas and I'm just like, these were built in a time where we wouldn't even, be considered equal, right?
Yeah.
As a black man, right? And for me, it's I want to take the abolition approach. If we just destroyed everything and said, okay, let's start from the standpoint of how do we get from point A to point B in the best way? This is not it, right? Maybe in 30 years ago for white students, and a way that only supported, and when you think about it, this board changed. Originally, the board was changed from elected to appointed back to half elected because of segregation. At the time, when they started ending segregation, they moved it from elected to appointed, right? So it's we are literally, in a racist system, and in order to move forward and serve all students, we have to rethink how this system is going to work.
Absolutely. I have to rethink how the system will work. Any other reflections before we close out?
I'm just reflecting kind of like what Melissa was saying as well. She kind of touched on this, is that I feel like I wanted to have a lot of call outs and a lot of like community information and a lot of information out there because I wanted to inform the community. And I'm realizing that it could have been an email. So, like, even though I had good intentions, it wasn't falling, in the right way.
Well, here's the thing, it's important to know, nothing in our coaching is ever going to suggest that the board of the community should have less access to information. The only conversation we're having now is, are there other more optimal ways to get it done? So there's never going to be a time where the answer is the board should have less information and the community should. That's never, ever, ever the answer. But sometimes the answer is, can we do it in a different way that better lets us respect the needs of our children?
I can add, I think, for me,
He's still on this.
oh, hi, AJ. I think for me, I also, similar to what Corey had said, I think I am personally like somebody who's like set it all on fire and then deal with the ashes later. Like that's just my personality type. But as I've gotten older, I've learned that you don't destroy something until you learn how it was built. It's kind of like furniture. Like you don't just go, especially if you're gonna have to repurpose the furniture if you're moving. You have to understand how it was built when you deconstruct it, so that when you rebuild it, you're not like me. I just like throw screws away, and then I'm like, dang, like I need those screws.
I need that screw.
I need that screw. And so I felt that way when we first did this process with you, AJ. I was like, set it all on fire. Who cares? Let it go. And then I was like, oh wait a minute, hold up. Like even if we like my template agenda has like 5 items essentially. I'm like, but I'm still responsible to know where the other items go. I should be able to speak to where every single other item is going. Is it an email? Is it a committee? Is it a text message? On what frequency? It doesn't mean less work. Actually, reducing means more work because it's not just the district that needs to be prepared. That means we need to be prepared so they can be prepared so we can be prepared. And so I am just realizing that this is not about less work. This is about more efficient work that we need to do collectively.
Mic drop.
Well, I say we end on the mic drop right there. Here's the thing. Anytime we can be supportive, reach out. That's what we're here for. You have access to us like basically 24/7. Anytime y'all reach out and you want to talk to an issue, we're going to be here. One of the things that will happen next on this is members of my team will be reaching out to you to interview you. You all have heard about this. Part of that interview, you need to be prepared to talk about what are changes that we want to make as it relates to our committee's use of time. And by the way, you can do a keep, delete, modify on your committee list too. Which ones do we want to keep? Which ones do we want to delete? Which ones do we want to modify? But you'll be getting an interview from a member of my team. These are the comments. So take all your notes that you wrote tonight and be prepared to talk about them during that interview, because that's part of what the interview is about. What changes do you want to make to your committee structure? What changes do you want to make to your meeting structure? Thank you so much for all the hard work that you're all putting in, and for trusting me and my team to just be standing by your side, supporting you as you go through this process. Mr. Chair, if you're still there, or Madam Vice Chair.
Oh, do I have a motion to adjourn this meeting? And AJ, thank you so much before we adjourn. Thank you so much.
Thank you, AJ.
You are such, you and Cindy are such a blessing to us, and we really, I will speak I statement. There's no way I could be doing this work without y'all's help. So I just want to say thank you, and I'm pretty sure that other folks feel probably the same way. So just thank you so much, AJ and Cindy.
Thank you.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Here, let's go.
Thank you, AJ.
Peace.
Have a good night.
Everyone should have started getting, I know I got my email today, so check your emails if you haven't. They started, asking 3 days prior.
See you later.
Thank you all.
Thank you for the snack.
I sent a text, I'm sorry, I should have sent one of the reminders that said they was gonna be reaching out.
Thank you, Dr. Dillon, for
Also, I know our finance things are doing.
Does anyone want a
just
snack from the road?
reminder to everybody.
I appreciate it, but thank you.
Make sure we get, I'm behind, I just.
It is a bit chilly in here.
It's cold as piss in
I mean-
Antarctica.
It's only,
And Miss Martha turned it off too.
Turn them off.
You.
It's the actual building that's.
that's cold.
Because I turned them off.
It's not any criticism of the reports, they're great reports.
It's just, if we can do it more, then maybe it'll
Yeah.
be more efficient.
No, how you've been doing it in the last couple of meetings has been
Yeah,
perfect.
it's
All student focused.
I do think it's important, it would be helpful to have a discussion. I see you feels like setting new goals. I think it would be really helpful to have a discussion, like, I know we wanna always talk about success. It would really be helpful to have like
Have a good one, Angel.
Yeah.
on the